Wendy, would you please call the roll?
That sounds good.
Oh, boy.
It's the new stuff.
Here.
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 Yeah.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, number one, these are new? Wow, I think I gotta step back a little, I think.
Do we have an extra one of those?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure.
What do you want?
An extra one of these?
I'm not sure.
Wendy, is there an
got
extra
one.
one of the yellow ones?
Okay. Number one, executive session pursuant to provisions of Rhode Island General Law, sections 4246-2, 4246-4, and 4246-5A. Number 5, land acquisition, and 5, lease JFK School, review, discussion, and/or potential action, and/or vote in executive session and/or an open session.
Motion to recess, open session, and reconvene in executive session.
Second?
We have a motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
So Nick, we have to ask you to step out until we're done with All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No. No. Yeah. You're vaccinated.
Is he going down?
No, you won't say that.
No, he should, but he
don't want
doesn't want to.
No. You want to?
I'll stay up.
You have to? Yes. Oh, okay.
Overridden?
What is overridden, I may ask?
Just saying. Okay. Okay.
Motion to reconvene.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to reconvene. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so our mics are a little bit loud tonight because we have a new system. So it's kind of just being tested a little bit, so I apologize if it's loud, or maybe you actually can hear us for once. Okay, number 2, citation of the council in recognition of former council president Robert J. Sylvia.
Motion to begin said presentation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I will come down with Mrs. Von Villis. Yes, ma'am. You need help? Okay, tonight we're going to recognize Bob, who served on the council with us on the council for 12 and a half years, 6 and a half of those years as town council president. So Bob, if you want to come up, that'd be great. I prepared some words that I would like to just take a moment a few minutes to, a little bit of time to recognize Bob Sylvia's service to his town and community. And I want you to keep track of the years as I go along. Bob was a member of the Middletown Police Department from 1978 to 1993 for 15 years, ending his tenure as a captain for the Middletown Police Department. Bob served on the Personnel Board from December of 2000 to December of 2003, 3 years. Now we're up to 18 years. Bob served on the town council at 2 different stints, from 2006 to 2010. Took a couple years off, ran for election again from 2012. Served from 2012 to April of 2021. So that's a total of council service of 12 and a half years. From 2012 to 2014, Bob is the vice president of the town council. From 2014 to 2021, he serves as town council president, which I can attest to is not an easy task. Bob, you've been protecting and serving our town for 30 and a half years. Being numbers people that we are, that's 45% of your lifetime, because I know how old you are, that you've contributed to your town. Think about that. Almost half of your life, in one capacity or another, you've contributed back to the town. And a lot of that is a leader in a leadership position, whether it was with the police department or with the council. During your tenure in the council, Bob has served on numerous committees, such as the Audit Committee, the Budget Advisory Subcommittee, which you developed and implemented and served as its chairman. You were liaison to the School Committee. You were on the Special Assessment Review Subcommittee. You're on the Citizens Memorial Committee, Economic Advisory Subcommittee. You're on the Beach Commission, Recreational Facilities Master Plan Advisory Group. You took great pride in leading the town's successful 275th anniversary. And if I left out any, I apologize. You can blame Wendy. So let's talk about some of the accomplishments when you were serving your town. And unprecedented, this is the one that sticks out to me the most. There's a lot of good ones, and if I leave any out, I apologize. It's not intentional. An unprecedented and possibly never to be duplicated again accomplishment of no tax increase 4 consecutive years as town council president. Advocated to redevelop the West Main Road corridor, helped to secure the purchase of the former Navy Lodge property, successfully negotiated the increased staffing at the fire department as we double the number of rescue wagons responding to alarm calls. Advocated for family night events at Second Beach, including the end of the season fireworks display. of all veterans in our community and took the lead to construct a beautiful all-veterans monument at Paradise Park. For those of you that haven't seen it, if you have seen it, you know how nice it is. It was really classy. A member of 2 different town councils that approved the new police station and the addition of the fire station and renovation of the old police station. Instrumental in helping getting our 20 red roads paved. Instrumental in many sewer and drainage projects getting accomplished throughout the town. Advocate in multiple open space acquisitions to help preserve Middletown's natural beauty. Advocate of ensuring Little League improvements in the fields to make sure the kids have a safe and first-class place to play. Instrumental in ensuring the new multi-purpose fields were approved and constructed. And there were many, many more. As I was writing these down and thinking about them, I got a little help from Sean because I can't remember it all myself. And thank you for that, Sean. You know, we can talk about all the accomplishments, but that's not what we do. We're doing that to recognize some of them for all the years of our time in the town. You forget most of them, honestly. You just do it because that's what you're elected to do. Make the town a better place today than it was yesterday. Bob, you're a great colleague, leader, mentor, and friend. Your leadership, experience, knowledge, and history of this great town are irreplaceable and will be sorely missed. The word great, as I said earlier in the speech, is in here by design because with your leadership and contributions over 12 and a half years as town councilor, and 6 and a half of those years as town council president, it's helped to put this town and community in the position we are in today. We all enjoy today. However, all those accomplishments are not achieved alone or without sacrifices. A lot of personal sacrifices, a lot of professional work sacrifices, and most importantly, family sacrifices. They cannot be accomplished without a very, very, very understanding and supportive spouse. Barbara, I'd ask you to come up, please. Time's almost up. Okay. Barbara, you have been the glue for Bob's tenure on the council with your unwavering support and understanding of the time commitment required to set this town's course of success for today, tomorrow, and the future. As a team, Barbara, as a team, yourself and Bob helped to accomplish that. You should be extremely proud of each other working in unison for our community, as we are both proud of you. We are all proud of you. And in conclusion, Bob, thank you from the bottom of our hearts, for your commitment, dedication, desire, and drive to make this great town a better place when you left it than when you started with it. And we all strive for that. And you, working for the town all those years, and with your support, you both accomplished that. Wherever your life's journey may take you, we wish you health, happiness, and prosperity always, but most of all, we thank you. We have a citation for Bob, along with a lot of gifts, Middletown gifts for you and your family. The Town of Middletown citation, be it hereby known to all that the Middletown Town Council hereby offers its sincerest appreciation to Robert J. Sylvia in recognition of your dedication and successful service to the Town of Middletown, serving on the Town Council and various town boards for over a decade. The Town Councils extend their very best wishes in your future endeavors, given this 20th day of December 2020. Barbara has a very nice, you can figure out it's a picture, and you'll be very pleased when you open it. There was several pictures that the town has, Bob, and I had to come down to the vault about a month ago where he keeps them locked and secured. And she said, well, which one do you think? And I said, why do I have to make the decision, you know? So, but the one I picked is something that you've always talked about and you've always called the crown jewel, and it's the beach. It's a picture of something to do with the beach. So I think you'll like it very much. And along with, you'll have a little nice, there's some other things in there, but the nice little town tile that's a clock. So you'll enjoy that. I'd like to give you the opportunity to see if you'd like to say a few words. You've never really been a loss for words, so.
I'm going to be. Tonight. I'm very humbled by this. I sincerely mean that. The first time Paul ever lied to me was tonight. He told me I was coming here to judge an ugly sweater contest, and here I am. But I want to thank Paul, who's like a brother. We spent a lot of time together, Barbara and the counselors that I spent a lot of time with over the years. And everything that was done, it was done with a team effort. It was a team accomplishment, and we did some great things. We have a great town. We have a great staff, and I'm humbled. Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Okay, so we have another presentation, and I'll read it in. Memorandum of Town Administrator, reference to the 2021 Holiday Card Art Contest Prize Presentation.
Motion to receive said memorandum and begin said presentation.
Second?
Motion to second it begin. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Sean's assistant Maureen put together a holiday greeting card competition or contest, and there's a couple different categories. There's a youth category and there's an adult category. So we've had two winners, one from the adult category and one from the youth category, and we'll recognize those folks right now, okay? So we'll do the adult category first. We had Yuki Bito, who, I hope I got your name right, welcome. And so Yuki decided to draw some cardinals. When she came here, she had never seen a cardinal before. And when she saw it, she loved it and fell in love with it. So this is the adult holiday card that will be sent out to various board members and committee members and town members. And Yuki, we're going to give you this. And thank you. And we also have for you, this is your original artwork. And we also have a $50 gift card in there, and some of these cards that were made up for you as well. And thank you for your contribution. Excellent. Great job. You want to say anything?
Thank you for having me here today. I moved to Middletown 3 years ago as I assigned to work at the Naval College. When I moved here, I was so moved by the beauty of nature here, and the people in Middletown helped me as well as my family. So my card is full of gratitude to all of you and all of things in the Middletown. Thank you so much.
Sarah Shealy. Come on up, Sarah. Good job. So Sarah decided she was going to do it under the Paradise Windmill, and she drew a windmill and made it a winter version of it. She had put lights on it and a snowman, and it's very cool. You did a great job. So we're going to give this to you as well. And we also have some cards in there that are made up that you can send out if you like, and a $50 gift card. Congratulations. You want to say something? Thank you, Sarah and Yuki, all the ones that contributed to the contest. Okay? Excellent. All right. Okay. Let's move on to the public forum, number 4. Pursuant to provisions of the rules of the council, citizens may, Rule 25 of the rules of the council, citizens may address the town on one subject only, said subject of substantive town business, neither discussed during the regular meeting nor related to personnel or job performance. Citizens may speak for no longer than 5 minutes and must submit a public participation form to the council clerk prior to the start of the meeting. All items discussed during this session will not be voted upon. And we do have a form. We actually have Senator Lou DePalma, who would like to come up and talk about the Rhode Island Department of Transportation construction project. You really just came to say Merry Christmas, right?
I did.
All right. Welcome, Senator DePalma.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. The clerk is handing out a item I brought with me, and I have a special one at the end. And it is now 7:02, and I see it says 4:49. We will be done in less than 2 minutes. This is something this council and prior councils have been working on almost 20 years now. This has to do with Aquinic Avenue from East Main Road to Greenen Avenue. If you turn the page over to the page that has very few words on it, you'll see that it was put out to bid on December 16th. So Aquinic Avenue will be done in the spring of next year. Spring of next year.
Will be started.
We started, correct. It will be started.
That's fast construction there, Lou.
Will be started in the spring of next year. Not to go back in history a little bit, I know when I served on the council, so thank you for your service, all 7 of you, for your service on the council. I know what you do, I can appreciate what you do, and I thank you for what you do. This goes back though when Paul, myself, and Teresa served on the council together. I know we talked about this between 2004 and 2008. I'll call it, so I shouldn't say Councilor Santos had brought it up and said, when are we going to do Aquinic Avenue? We need those sidewalks. We have a school there. We need those sidewalks. And every year, it did make it to the Transportation Improvement Plan, the TIP. Now we call it the STIP, or whatever. Well, it's made it to that. It's made it to that with the work of your town administrator, other folks involved. And I can categorically say for the last 5 or 6 months, probably, every Tuesday, I was on the phone with Rhode Island DOT asking them what needs to happen next. We almost had a hiccup the Wednesday before or the Friday after. I think it was the Friday after Thanksgiving when I got a call from DOT saying, Senator, we got a problem. And I said, please let me know. Any issue you have, call. It wasn't Houston, we have a problem. It's Senator, we got a problem. I may need your help. What do we need to do? Let's figure it out. Federal Highway, or no, excuse me, Army Corps of Engineers needs to get involved. I'm saying to myself, Army Corps, I'm not quite certain why the Army Corps needs to be involved in Aquinic Avenue. Well, if we look at Aquinic Avenue, and talking later on, Aquinic Avenue may be down by where it meets Memorial Boulevard. Yeah, maybe. Down by the water. Up here, I don't think so. Got on the phone with Senator Reed's office, his district director. I said, it's Chris Albert. I said, Chris, can you help? That afternoon, they got approval by Army Corps of Engineers. They signed off on it. They got it that day. They signed off at that afternoon. And that was really the last linchpin to move this forward. There is one caveat, though. I have 2 minutes, and I promise I would have been done by now. They're looking for space for storage of equipment and material, and they picked 214 Morrison Avenue as a place to store the material. Just kidding. Just kidding. No. All done. With all that.
Perfect.
Perfect. I will end there. We were going to stay on top of it. I know they'll be in touch with Sean, town administrator, and yourselves with regards to, because we're talking about a mile-long piece of roadway. It's the main roadway that gets folks to the beach, right? Where do you go to the beach? That's the way people go. All the businesses that are there. I'm sure there'll be some hiccups along the way. Obviously, we want to ensure the businesses aren't interrupted. So the night work that they need to do, they plan to do, whatever help you need, let me know. Just because we got it put out to bid doesn't mean I'm going away. we need to get this done, and we gotta make certain the equipment that's stored at 214 Morrison Avenue gets appropriately. I'll leave it there, so.
So, thank you, Senator. So, I had a discussion with Lou a few weeks ago on the phone, and, you know, he said to me, "Look, it looks like it's a go, but I'm having a problem with the site storage, the storage site." And he told me that I was gonna be able to store it in your property, and if it would be okay, and I said, sure, so. But, that's funny. So, just talking about this project real quick is that, you know, if you think about it now, with potentially if the bottom of Aquinic Avenue, the Atlantic Beach District, that area gets improved, you know, but there's potentially sidewalks going on Purgatory, potentially. There is sidewalks that go from Aquinic and Valley at the beginning of the Atlantic Beach District, almost all the way to Town Fair Tire on the opposite side, almost all the way. It stops just at the end of Ellen Shear's property. There will be sidewalks that will go from basically Prospect Avenue to East Main Road. So now there's that strip of road from the other side of Prospect, not because I live there, all the way down to past the ball fields, the Little League field, so maybe that's something that we could potentially work on next. And one of the things I've learned, or really come to appreciate being on the council, is that, and it started down at the bottom of Valley Road and Greenen Avenue, when that was a TIPS project for years. It never moved for years. Same thing with the one in Green End and Aquinic, and it moved for years. And the town really started to form this partnership with the state to say, hey, you know what, if you guys do pay for the engineering on it, maybe we can get this thing moved up a little quicker, and we did. And we did that in both projects, and we've helped with this project as well when you ran into the snafu with the Newport Water Department. But what I'd really like to say, getting to my point, is, just to end real quick, a couple things. One is that, thank you for getting this done. Lou, we appreciate that between you and Sean, but the real credit I want to give to tonight is my fellow councilor, Mrs. Santos, because she has been on this since I've been on the council with her, from almost day one, about trying to, so your persistence is paying off. You know, sometimes it takes longer than we all want, basically in government, but that doesn't mean it has to, but it did in this case. But you know what, here's something that is actually coming to fruition for not just road improvements, it's safety improvements. And it's safety for kids on that road, walking on that sidewalk, potentially. So I think that's fantastic, and thank you for your persistence and all the crap you've given me over the years about it. And Lou, thank you and your team, and working, staying on top of it, and Sean and your team. So I think we're all looking forward to this. One last thing is is it night work?
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure that the businesses there are aware of that they're not impacted. I know, Sean, we've had discussions about it probably 9 months ago or a year ago, that, you know, is minimal, because that's really when the season starts taking off, is the spring. And we're happy it's getting done, but hopefully, I think it's getting done at night. I just want to make sure that's clear.
So I just was in contact with Rhode and had forwarded the resolution that council has already passed requesting night work, and we'll continue to follow up with that over the next couple of weeks to make sure it is accommodated as best we can.
Yeah, because with everything going on, it's, you know, with the amount of traffic that'll be coming down that road in the spring, and it's one of the main arteries in town, coming off of 138 to 138A, and then not only that, but more important, just as importantly, is the businesses.
Correct.
It's important those businesses cannot be crippled and be shut down by construction.
It's been discussed. RIDOT's brought it up with regards to the night work, and I said, at the end of the day, I'm an intermediary here. No matter what you do, there's 7 folks on the council and the town administrator. They need to be aware of everything that's going on, and clearly the businesses as well.
Okay.
I know they talked to some of the business because of some easements they needed and rights of way and all that. So.
I would just ask Lou that between yourself and Sean, that we stay on top of that, because I think that's critical to the success of a lot of those small businesses, either make or break during the peak season.
I think it's important over the next number of months as it gets built up. as Sean has passed that resolution to the RIDOT, that we stay in concert with them. I suspect, I'm not a civil engineer, I'm an engineer, but I'm not a civil engineer. There's certain things that probably can only be done at certain times, but how do we minimize that to the greatest extent possible from a business perspective, from an economic perspective, from a resident perspective?
I think we need to be real sensitive.
Before I leave, I have one, if I can approach the council?
Sure. There you go.
Thank you, Senator.
Merry Christmas, Senator. Thank you so much. Okay, excellent. It's always good news. Okay, let's move on to, so we're gonna go from number 5, just so everyone's aware, number 5 through number 20 were not acted upon, and they were actually continued from the December 6th meeting, so we're gonna tackle those now, because it's only fair that they're taken in that order. I would just like to say, and I probably should have said at the beginning of the meeting, is there's new regulations and mandates from the governor with executive orders, and I see everybody with a mask on, so thank you. We actually had to provide proof of vaccination as well earlier. It's just one of those things, and, you know, it's unfortunate, but we can get through it. Okay. Number 5, communication of Council of Toronto in reference to update on the progress of the Affordable Housing Committee.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second?
Motion second to receive, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is, I put this subject matter on the docket. As chairman of the Affordable Housing Committee, I wanted to update the town council on the progress of the committee. You know, we've been meeting on a regular basis at the fire station. A number of our councilors are on the committee. Paul and Mrs. Santos are on the Affordable Housing Committee with a number of other residential folks, residents of Middletown participating. We have a great group of folks. Everyone's got a little bit of a different reason for being on the committee, and I think it's been pretty diverse. And we initially had a committee that was looking after the senior housing, but we've expanded it into affordable housing, which there's several different groups of types of affordable housing, and I won't go into that tonight. But we are focused on all of those areas, and we've basically identified 3 properties on the Affordable Housing Committee for the council to take a little deeper look at in regards to, you know, are these valid options to put affordable housing in. We've actually done a tour of the facilities as well as the council, which I thought was really useful, and I appreciate the council taking the time to do that. A lot has changed since I put this on the docket. We've actually made some movements in regards to the identification of these properties, and actually have approved at the last meeting to take it to another level deeper to look at what we could actually put into those areas in regards to affordable housing, and, you know, what are the qualifications and the features of each of the units, and what type of affordable housing would fit best in those properties. And that was the Peckham building, as well as the Oliphant School, as well as Linden Field. So those are the 3 that we've identified. The council is aware of that, and again, a lot's changed, you know, since I put this on here. So I was going to ask that, you know, the council approve Frank Spinella to look into these properties in more of a deep drawing and again, coverage, which we approved in the last meeting, actually. So that was great, and so thank you. And then, let's see, we'd also wanted to recommend to add this to the comprehensive plan, because from a state level, and we are making a lot of improvements, and we are moving in the right direction, and I'm very excited about all the affordable housing that's actually coming to the surface in projects, and Sean's been tracking those, and Sean's been part of the committee as well, so thank you, Sean, and helping us organize that and helping us get it over the, you know, the last few steps, you know, in regards to moving forward with this. And this is not something that's going to go away. Affordable housing's here to stay. We're going to continue to have to keep our eye on it over the years, but I've seen some really big movements in the last 6 months to a year, so I'm very excited that we're going to actually be providing a lot of affordable housing, which there is a big need for it out there. So Those are the kind of the couple of things that I wanted to just bring forward. Again, I would like to talk with Sean and what is our best way of updating the comprehensive plan, so that, again, we can reflect that we've targeted some items. So if the state does, come to Middletown and say, hey, what are you guys doing for affordable housing? We can actually point to our comprehensive plan and say we've identified some properties. And I'm hoping that the state doesn't get involved and that we do get this to the point where we've identified it, the council has agreed to take it to the level that we go out for contract. So that's kind of what I wanted to bring forward. And so, Sean, I mean, if the council's receptive to adding this to the comprehensive plan, do we need to take a vote on that and ask that to be done?
Are we at that step yet to be able to do that, or?
I don't think so. I would need to talk to Ron about the process in which that happens. It's not something that necessarily just goes from the council directly to the comp. That would be the comp plan amendment process, which I think is more involved.
And there is a affordable housing component in the comp plan. Some towns have a separate affordable housing plan. Our affordable housing plan is a component of our comprehensive plan. So there is language and a plan in there about the town's goals as it relates to affordable housing.
Yeah, Dennis, I would recommend if you get with Ron and see which direction you want to go with that, and then bring it back when we're ready to do that. I think it's the right thing to do. It's just a matter of the timing of it, and I don't know if the current comp plan, the affordable housing piece of it, would have to be amended or not. It's something we need to look at.
Okay, and that advice had come from Frank Spinella as a recommendation for the council to move on this. So maybe Sean can also talk with Frank why he made that recommendation. And also, it's great that Ron could be involved as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dennis. Okay, any further conversation? Appreciate the update. Number 6, memorandum of town administrator in reference to change order for FJS Associates contract.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
Motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and we'll take on number 7 at the same time, and then ask the town administrator to address it. Number 7 is a resolution of the council in reference to authorize the town administrator to execute a change order to FJS Associates contract.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
Motion is second. Sean.
This is a recommendation from the administration to award a change order to Frank Spinella's contract. The total dollar amount recommended is $40,000. Frank's original contract was to provide consulting specifically related to development at the Berkeley Peckham school site. Since then, his role has expanded to advising the Affordable Housing Committee and their role to look at affordable housing throughout the entire town, to include the multiple sites that Councilman Toronto mentioned earlier. Frank has also been providing advice to the planning board on matters, and has taken on a more active role. So based on the work that's laid out right now to continue to move those projects forward and to provide, again, consulting, the Affordable Housing Committee, he's been to MEDAC meetings. We're recommending that a change order of $40,000 be approved.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, we have a motion, a second to pass said resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Number 8, memorandum of town administrator in reference to update market study for affordable housing.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
We have a motion, a second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
And we'll take on number 9 at the same time. It's resolution of the council in reference to authorize the town administrator to execute a change order to FJS Associates in reference to the update market study for affordable housing.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
We have a motion, a second to pass. Mr. Brown.
When we looked at the Berkeley Peckham School, one of the original charges that the town council had was to look at basically a market study looking at what kind of opportunities do we have to build not only senior affordable housing at the Berkeley Peckham School site, but also town-wide. Part of this is not only to look at what we can build, but also to avoid sort of that field of dreams scenario where we build housing or housing units that don't get filled. So what Frank and I are recommending is that we update that study. That's based not only on the changing environment because of COVID, but also There are a number of projects that are happening, not only in Middletown, but in Newport and Portsmouth. And there are changes in how many units the market itself will actually support being constructed. We talked to our consultant who prepared the original study, and his estimate to complete the project is $8,500. This is Keystone Consulting, who does a number of assessment and financial projects like this for the town already. But that would be the cost of the study, and our recommendation would be for the council to approve the change order.
Okay. Mrs. Flynn?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was very curious about this particular item because the study that we received is only about a year old. This was on our agenda back in August, September, October of 2020. And the full cost of the study at that time was $9,750. Typically, I wouldn't expect an update to be almost the same cost as the original study. I'm not exactly sure that we will learn much that we don't, of information that we don't already have in-house. I'm pretty sure that, Ron could provide us what's in the pipeline in Middletown. A simple call to the other towns may fill in those blanks. And according to the Housing Fact Book that just came out, I believe in late fall, we are only at 5% of our affordable housing units that we need. They are reporting we have 5.16% of our housing inventory is affordable housing, and that's 332 units. So you could look at that and say, okay, we need another 332 just to get to the sweet spot of 10%. And that's not a cap, that's a minimum. So I'm just not sure that now's the time to spend that money. I'm just not sure what extra information that we would actually glean from it that we don't really already have or can get pretty easily.
Sean, who's recommending this?
It would be both Frank and myself. So, again, I think the state provides a guideline on the number of affordable housing units that it would like to see, but that doesn't necessarily reflect the market in Middletown or the appetite of developers to develop in the town of Middletown. And I guess what Frank and I have discussed is that this provides a meaningful snapshot of what housing is actually can reasonably be developed within the town, based on those two things. The state's guideline is a guideline applied to every community within the state, and it's sort of a blunt tool, I think, to look at how much affordable housing really needs to be developed. So that's where our recommendation comes from. Again,
Frank feels that it's changed that much in 1 year since our original.
I think a big part of it is the need or the desire for housing's changed a lot with COVID because people are staying home. People have an ability to move from the cities to the towns. We have a still continuing environment that's changing because of short-term rentals. I think Middletown, it's a pretty dynamic time. Again, this is our recommendation as of right now, and I think part of that's based on discussion with the committee. We started off with simply a senior housing committee. Now that discussion has expanded to an affordable housing committee, looking at multiple sites and looking at generating a number of units above and beyond what was originally conceived. So again, as that scope increases, I think this update would provide information that isn't necessarily available right now.
It's a lot of, I understand what you're saying, Terry. You bring up certainly some valid points. If the number was 332 and say Messalola builds, 70 of them out there, and we build 75, you're talking 150, and then another 54 over at West House, so your 200 was still 100 and some shy. Or maybe it becomes more than that with COVID. I don't know.
Another area where this information would be available is as we continue to look at redevelopment of West Main Road, Coddington. we would have a point in not only determining how many units we'd want to see over there, but as we negotiate with the potential developer, or even as we come up with a design for the area, we'll have a better understanding of what build-out is, as well as the point at which rents need to be established within that. Again, I think we make some of these judgments. Is it 80% of market, the average market, or is it 70 or 60? And we need some data from the market to help us make those decisions.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd just like to suggest, I'm not opposed to doing a market study. I think that it would be more valuable, or we would get more out of investing in it in maybe 6 months, when, to the town administrator's point, the West Main Coddington, may be more active, and what is in the pipeline may be further along, and we'll know exactly what will come to fruition for those that are just in the planning stages.
Understood. Well, it's certainly uncharted waters for all of us, and we want to make sure we're taking the proper steps to get to our goal. And I understand and respect your point and opinion.
I don't want to have to pay for it twice.
I-
Things are very dynamic.
I understand that. But I'm not the expert on it, so I'm going to rely on the recommendation of Frank and Sean and see where it goes. So that's just me. Dennis?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. We do have a lot of information that's changed over the last 6 months in regards to developments and affordable housing. I'm totally excited about it. And I do think that we need to take inventory and say, okay, we do have this, this project is here, and it's this far along, and it looks like it's going to be affordable housing for workers. And then we got another project that's going on. We think this one is going to be best for senior housing. And then this one is going to be for, young families, that need a real break in regards to rents. And I think we have a lot of that, is what Terry said. So I'd like to see an organized document on that, maybe in Excel, that says boom, 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 and they're 90% sure this is going to happen, or just so we can get a feel, because in the Affordable Housing Committee, we've looked at all these different types of affordable housing, and I think we've got a lot of them being addressed in a lot of ways. And we've talked about, is 330 the right number? Is 500 the right number? Or is 200? So I say we look at, this is going to get us a few more 100 houses if they all go through, and we assess at that point, because I think there's seniors who want to stay in their homes, and there might be things that we can do to help them stay in their homes, not necessarily build affordable housing for them and not maybe help them stay in their house, right? Because I think a lot of seniors do want to stay in their homes, and that's another area on the Affordable Housing Committee that we want to look at. How do we help seniors stay in their home longer? Could we help them cut their grass? Could we make sure that we call them once a month? Can we make sure we call them once a week? There's certain people who need certain help out there. We can look at folks in their 90s and their 80s and their 70s and their 60s, and they all have needs, but they're a little different. So I think, we can define that and look at that. But, I'd like to see a study done, keep it updated and so on. But as Terry said, would that be better 3 months from now, or after we put a little bit more homework ourselves into this and provide that information to the consultant of all the projects that are going on, rather than them trying to figure that all out?
Okay.
Good. What the council wants to do is okay.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a different take on affordable housing. I don't think we can have too much. And the reason I say that is because if we look at the results of studies from the Chamber, which has looked at employment on the island, and we find that the employers are having difficulty getting people to work on the island. Now, we're not talking about people that are necessarily highly educated and have the ability to spend a lot of money on houses. We're talking about people who are trying to make a living. And while we talk a lot about seniors and having them stay in their houses, at the same time, I think what we have to do is we have to remember that we have a population that needs to support the economic development of this island. And economic development isn't only based on high-income kinds of institutions. So I'm not concerned about having too much. I'm concerned that we don't have enough.
So the one thing I would respond to with that, and again, this goes back to the market. So what you're suggesting, the study from the chamber, is we need a whole lot. But the market itself, as it's currently constructed, may not support a whole lot because of the value of the land. You can't build a capital stack to build enough housing. And if that's the case, that's where the municipality would step in and have to provide the subsidies to change the capital stack to develop those units. And again, without some understanding and discussion about the market, we're just talking, you know, and we're at a level it's too high to come down to a tactical level where you're actually doing something. I mean, I think Paul, Teresa, and Dennis know this. I mean, you go to that Affordable Housing Committee meeting, the people that are volunteering are very passionate. They're passionate to a point where I think they're sort of not happy with us sometimes because they want to see and they want to be involved in taking more action. And again, I think this is an important piece of information to address exactly what you're saying. Yeah, the chamber says we need more units. We can't have enough units. But if the market can't build a capital stack to get those, we're just spinning our wheels.
Yeah, there's two things happening at the same time.
It all sort of comes together into, I don't know who said it, we've got to get that much smarter on this, and understanding the market's a critical component of it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to pass said resolution. Any further discussion? Mr. Welch.
I'd just like to say that on the second page, that if they have to go to any extraordinary meetings, this is Keystone Consulting Group, and I would classify our meetings as extraordinary. That they charge those at $300 an hour, so I think we should renegotiate our contract. Us personally.
Oh.
That's all.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, excellent. Thank you for the conversation. Let's move on. Number 10, Memorandum of Finance of Town Administrator in reference to change order for mechanical design of senior center.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll take number 11, resolution of the council in reference to authorize the town administrator to execute a change order for FJS Associates for mechanical design of senior center.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to pass. Mr. Brown.
So the town is the recipient of a CDBG grant to install new air conditioning at the senior center. The dollar amount of that grant is somewhere between $275,000 and $300,000. I don't have the exact number with me tonight. But we do need to hire someone to help us with an HVAC architectural set of plans to put the project out to bid. Because FJS is already using architects that have familiarized themselves with the buildings, what we're suggesting is that we execute a change order with them to help us get the bids out so that we can successfully implement that project. Currently, the senior center relies on window-installed air conditioners, which, you know, given our current environment, is not the healthiest environment for our seniors. So getting some expertise to help us write the right bid specs will help us get the right HVAC system for the people that use the center. And that's the purpose of the change order.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Welch.
Yep, so one of the things I don't quite understand is if I were to hire someone to come to my house to install air conditioning, the contractor would come in, give me a quote, tell me what they want to do, and then install it. But here, we have Frank Spinella overseeing, then we have someone coming in to design it, and then we're obviously going to have a contractor. And I don't quite understand why that is. And secondly, in their proposal assumes, of course, they say they're going to come and do a site investigation, so they should see everything that's existing. But then they go on to say that anything that once they put in the new equipment, that it assumes that it can support the new usage. In other words, if our electrical system isn't up for handling the new equipment, that's on us. And I would think if they did a site inspection first, that they should let us know about that ahead of time.
I would agree.
Well, it's,
And that's part of that site review, so if what we need to put in requires an electrical upgrade, it would be identified. So that's what they have in here, is that would be an additional fee to redesign the electrical service. I guess that's the purpose of bringing someone in, is to let us know whether or not what we need to put in will actually be, can be constructed.
understood. So the fourth bullet under qualifications, our proposal assumes, that just seems contradictory to their investigation during their walkthrough. Unless I'm reading it wrong.
I think that is more to define the scope of work of their design work. In other words, their design work is with regard to the HVAC system. If during their site visit they determine that there are other infrastructure needs that have to be taken care of to make the HVAC system work, they would, and we ask them to design those new systems, there would be an additional charge for that. So I don't think it was for them to say they're not going to identify those issues, just saying that fixing those or designing the solutions to those are not part of this price, that's all.
And that makes sense. It's just the wording made it sound like they're going to put it in regardless, and then we were out of luck. Okay.
So Sean, why wouldn't we just go out to bid and somebody would come in and tell us what we need?
Because you'd have to do, I guess you can do it that way, but the problem with public sector bidding is you just get the low-cost system. You don't necessarily get the system that's right for the building.
Okay.
That's really it. We want our guy to tell the bidders what we want in the most complete manner so that we don't end up with change orders and we get a system that hopefully is balanced and provides adequate.
So in other words, when we go out to bid for like a truck at Public Works, our guys spec it out because they know what they're doing.
Exactly.
So here, we can't spec it out because we're not AC experts.
No.
Okay.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yes. Mrs. Flynn?
I just have one question. Will this work be impacted or change as a result of whatever happens with senior housing on that parcel that we don't know about yet?
No, and that's another benefit of having Frank involved. So we already know there's going to be some sort of separation between the senior center and the senior housing. We're working with the same architect, so the final design would at least take that into consideration so that there is a separation.
Just so long as whatever is decided on, we don't hit a brick wall down the road because we wanted to do something else and it impacts the system we just spent a lot of money on.
Correct.
Just real quick, Sean, what's the timeline on this? I meant to ask it on the update of the survey as well, so I apologize. I'm just kind of trying to find, when are we going to get this information back? Because I don't want this to hold things up in regards to moving forward, with helping to select a property and so on. And it's important to do this, but I'd hate to see it push out 3 months.
I see this having nothing to do with that.
They're unrelated.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mrs. Sanos?
Thank you, sir. My question is addressed to Mr. Brown. How did this engineering design service come to be picked to do this?
So this is the engineer associated with the architect that has already been selected to do work on the senior center building.
So we didn't go out searching for him, he came to us.
No, we originally went out searching for them when we were looking at the senior housing on the property. This is basically a change order to their existing agreement with Frank Spinella, who's representing the town.
So the proposal is addressed to Christopher Johnson, it's not addressed to you. I find that a little bit strange.
Chris So Chris, myself, and Arlene have been discussing how we're going to get the air conditioning project completed. So Chris had been doing a lot of the running around. So that's how they addressed it back. There's just Chris has been facilitating the discussion, allowing them to get into the building to see what's going on, and assisting on Arlene to make sure that we don't lose out on the CDBG grant, that we actually execute that project in a timely manner.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Thank you, Sean. We have a motion to second to approve said resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Number 12, memorandum of town administrator in reference to the out-of-school program.
Motion receive said memorandum.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Mr. Brown.
This is a pretty simple, it's probably more of a clarification from me to you. At a previous town council meeting, you authorized me to engage ILO to discuss the development of a vision and mission, program design, budget development, those type of things for an out-of-school program. And I since have had several meetings with the ILO and basically begun a discussion on how we can accomplish putting a program together and including that within not only a request for the ARPA dollars, but also within the upcoming budget. One of the questions I had for you is, I guess up until this point, at the meetings, discussions, Councilor Toronto and Flynn have been part of the discussion, but as we sort of develop this broader plan for the department, is a decision of whether or not I should continue to just work with 2 members of the town council or 3, or is it a discussion that happens with all 7 of you as we continue to work on the second page of my memorandum. There's a sort of a chart that talks a little bit about what our work plan is regarding, development of some of these foundational items, and basically a number of meetings that people would participate in, not to sit there and develop a budget, but basically to provide that steering committee oversight to make sure it works. So my question for you is essentially a clarification on who I'm working with. Is it just the 2 counselors, 3 counselors, or all 7 of you? And I guess, do you want to be part of all those discussions, or is it something I bring back when it's done? I'm just trying to understand how you want to work through the problem.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Mrs. Gonzalez.
I'm an educator, and I've been thinking about the multiple issues that are currently involving the schools. And so I've kind of prepared a statement because I've been thinking about it, like I said, for some time. I'm very concerned that the town council not fall into the trap of making educational decisions based on strong reactions to other ongoing issues or personal agendas. The issue of the school finances is separate from the academic recovery of kids. We must not let our strong opinions get in the way of education. The immediate financial issue will be resolved by the end of January. We cannot let it muddy the waters as we consider what is best for kids. The statewide educational decline in the schools has been a direct result of theoretical decisions imposed top-down by national and state officials who have minimal practical experience. The resulting decrease in student performance has been exacerbated by COVID. I see it at Roger Williams. The superintendent sees it K through 12. The uneven educational levels and gaps of kids need to be solved in-house by teachers, not top-down. I have reviewed the district's plan to expand the Beyond the Bell program, provided by teachers after school and located within the schools themselves. That's where it belongs, especially if we are willing to provide the transportation to make it accessible for all the kids. Community programs have value, but they should not be regarded as miracle solutions. They are support mechanisms for parents who have the interest, as well as resources and ability, to transport their kids. They are irrelevant and even inaccessible for those whose perceptions and/or resources are limited. Yet these are the kids who need the help the most. If we are going to allocate the current limited resources, they should go to the place where we will likely get the best academic return, the teachers, and at the schools, where the focus is appropriate. And as an aside, I don't see the school department or even a cadre of teachers promoting out-of-school programs right now. The school department is submitting a proposal for the federal funds which will increase beyond the bell, for which the superintendent has consistently advocated and supported. Meanwhile, I hear what I consider premature proposals to add financial commitments to a budget already constrained by a multitude of more timely and critical municipal issues. Let's not let our uneasiness with school department financial management blind us to educational improvement in the schools themselves. Let's put our focus for now where it belongs. Let's put our kids' academic recovery first. Only then, after we all have our feet firmly on the ground, both academically and financially, can we consider additional municipal funding for beneficial community support programs. Immediacy is the issue. What can we do right now? I would like to end with an analogy. If the engine in your car is smoking and sputtering and you are worried that it will conk out in traffic, you don't fix it by going to the car wash or getting new seat covers. You take it to your auto mechanic who can diagnose the problem and take the appropriate steps to correct it. In this case, the teachers. Yes, there is merit in expanding community programs, but timing is everything. Get our kids back to where they should be. I can support the expansion of community educational opportunities with an appropriate timeline. However, expansion of community programs should be regarded as a long-term investment down the road when we are still talking about the possibility of a return to remote learning. We need to focus on reality. That's my thoughts.
Thank you, Mrs. Von Billis. Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Mr. Walsh.
I vote option 1.
So you would like to see a subcommittee set up? I agree. I mean, I think, Sean, if you're looking for direction, I think my opinion, my vote would also be that way because it's very difficult to be involved at every, I mean, again, this is something new to the town potentially. I think it goes like any other committee, you know, there's 2 or 3 councils involved and they work with you and, you know, you guys gather the information and come back and present it to the council. So, any other councils feel differently or have a different idea or opinion or want to weigh in on?
I do.
Dennis?
I want to say, that was what Sean was asking for, correct?
Yes.
Whether it's going to be the support of the whole council or it's going to be a subcommittee.
Yes.
It wasn't whether you supported the program or not. It was, what are we doing going forward, okay? And I think we've all seen that there is a need today. We all agree with that, okay? And we've been looking at this prior to COVID because we were concerned about the education level. And it's not what the whole program's about. We've discussed that this is a community program It's just that we have recognized that there is a need with our children today, right now. 12th graders going out of the school into the community right now or to college are behind. Our 11th graders are behind, and they're going to be seniors before they know it. And if we don't step up and offer some services, and we've done a survey through Mary Claire Knight, and she's identified services that need to be rendered for our students and for our teachers and for our parents that we are not providing today, and we don't have any plans to provide it through the school. I'll give you one example. The kids who are going from 11th and 12th grade into the community, they call it backpack to briefcase. They need to be exposed to opportunities and what they're going to be facing in the next year or two. It's a documented need that was put out by the school as well as by Mary Claire Knight. And this department has been formed to help fill that gap. And it may be and most of it is going to be with the help of the teachers. Maybe it's additional hours of work for them. We've talked about counselors. We have a very minimum number of counselors in the school that can maybe work with these children to keep them on track. We have a homeless need in Middletown with kids that are in our school that we need to help with. So we can keep sitting here and talking about how great, how some people have more experience and that we should be following that lead. But I'm going to tell you, the problem is here today, and we cannot spend the next 6 months trying to figure out how we move forward. This money that we've received by the federal government, passed through the state, is money that was allocated to assist programs that were affected by COVID. Our students have been affected by COVID. Yes, we probably need to give more money to the outreach program, which the school started, the after-school program, Beyond the Bell. That actually came back around after we brought the lieutenant governor in here to talk about the improvements that he made in this town when he was a mayor. So we've been on the right track for years. So I want our children to be ready to fly when they come out of that Middletown High School, whatever direction they want to go. And I think that the town of Middletown as a community needs that service to be provided by the community in conjunction with the school. That's just my opinion. The council will vote on it, determine how they want to move forward, but that's my opinion.
I'm not sure we were looking for that.
Well,
I get it.
well, someone else has brought it up and
So,
wanted to
but I
talk
would
about
like to
it.
know how you want to proceed.
Well,
You want
I'm willing to, I'm voting for what Sean wants to do as a subcommittee, if that's what he wants to form versus the whole council.
Good with that, Chris? Mrs. Sanos?
Yes.
Terry?
Comment?
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to assure Councilor Von Villis that the efforts are not mutually exclusive. The efforts are to be collaborative and to be complementary. We have heard Mary Claire's report was referenced, and there are identified gaps, not just in the school department, but in other community service agencies that need filling. And so the goal is to help the teachers. You're right, they're the educators, but they educate the student body. We also have a whole community who is suffering learning loss and toxic stress from COVID, and there cannot be enough programs. That's what this is all about. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Welch.
I know you're not supposed to nominate somebody else, but I think the two most educated people in this room on this subject are sitting on either end of this stage, and I think they both bring a different perspective and should be included on the subcommittee.
Okay. So, Sean, are you looking for a subcommittee tonight?
That would be excellent, actually.
Okay, that's all I needed to hear. Who's interested? We need a third. Okay. All right, so, do we need that in the form of a motion, Wendy? We do. Here you go, Mr. Welch.
Was it Terry, Dennis, Chris?
Yep.
I make a motion to have Counselor Flynn, Toronto, and Logan form a subcommittee to work with the town administrator toward what? Out-of-school program.
Second.
We have a motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, let's move on to number 13. Memorandum of Communication of Council Toronto in reference to Middletown Education Resolution.
Motion receive said communication.
Second.
We have a motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
And let's move on to number 14, resolution of the council in reference to prioritizing quality education for Middletown students, families, and residents.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second.
Okay, a motion is second to pass. Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, this has been continued over from a few meetings. We have been meeting with the ILO group. It's an consulting organization that was brought in by the state to help the Rhode Island school systems. They have a lot of involvement right now up in Providence and Central Falls and working in those areas. And this is a program, ILL is helping manage a program which is a municipal learning program on a state level. And we've been working with this consulting organization, and I provided a document, and I'm sure you get a copy at the town or on our website. This actually goes back to August 16th, 2021, and it talks about communities that the state has identified to assist with ILO to create a municipal learning program in each community. It was the lieutenant and governor's goal, and now it's the governor's goal to provide this, and they're providing us consulting services, and myself and Terry and Sean have been working with this team. There's like 3 consultants who have been working with us and telling us what's happening on a state level. We've been hoping that there would be some funding coming. We've been told that there may be some funding coming from the state in regards to monies that they're going to be allocating in this year's budget. We'll see. But part of it is, if you just kind of go up to, and I'll just, again, the initial municipalities that have been identified was Providence, Middletown, Coventry, North Providence, and Central Falls. So this is something we've been chasing, and we feel it's very important. The concept was to offer education to children after school, during the summer, just different means of educating the children and getting them up to speed. And again, we started looking at this before COVID, but it became more of an issue, and the state has recognized it. I believe the town of Middletown and our school has definitely recognized that we need to find ways to help educate the children. And one of the steps in here was a resolution. So I proposed to the council probably a couple months ago to form a resolution committing to education in the Middletown, not just to the students, but to the community members as well. Because this is a service that we can offer even after they get out of school, where, you know, they go off and they are stumbling a little bit, they can reach back to this municipality service. So I put together a resolution, which again is part of this whole program on the state level. I provided this to Peter, the program, as well as some work that we found that was done at Cumberland, and he helped pull this resolution together. So I'm looking to read it, and I'm hoping for feedback. If there's changes, things you agree with, things that maybe you would like changed, that's great. If not, I'd like to see us push it through.
Any further conversation? All right, so we have a motion, a second to pass that resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, let's move on to the town administrator business. Number 15, memorandum of town administrator in reference to request to extend public sewer line on Aquinic Avenue.
Motion receive said memorandum.
Second.
Motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion request the town administrator on behalf of the town council to notify the 2 property owners to pursue an alternative to tying into the private sewer line that is in the south corner of their lot.
Second.
A motion is second. Sean? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's let him go.
Yeah, okay.
It's very straightforward. As you learned tonight, just as I've learned recently, the state is going out to bid to reconstruct that stretch of Aquinic Avenue, so we do not have an opportunity to extend the public sewer line based on the construction timeline. So the two property owners that desire to connect to the town's sewer system will need to pursue it through the private line that exists within the area.
And there's one, as I read, there's one in the area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Is there any other comments, Mr. Welch?
And I don't know how this got dropped. I can take some responsibility. It did go to, we decided to push it to roads and utilities. It was brought up at the last meeting. I reached out to John Mello just to make sure that I remembered correctly, and that was exactly the same conclusion, not necessarily because Rhode was going to start in Aquinic, but just the depth of the sewer, the cost of the whole problem. The private sewer is definitely the way to go, and so that was going to be the recommendation. I guess it just didn't get back.
That's fine, and I can let property owners know that also.
So the recommendation from the roads and utilities is the same as
The
what
same.
the town
Yes,
administrators
absolutely.
to pursue those homeowners to pursue the private sewer line in that area?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Any further discussion?
Could Tom just speak further into the microphone? I really actually couldn't hear much of you on that.
She said she couldn't hear you.
We match. It's the same, it was brought up at roads and utilities. We came to the same conclusion.
Okay. Mrs. Sanos?
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Brown, are these two property owners going to be charged any sewer connections and be a sewer tax down the road?
They would pay an impact fee,
Okay,
and they would also pay a sewer maintenance fee in the future.
all right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Number 16, memorandum of town administrator in reference to Rhode Island Department of Transportation, temporary easements for Aquinic Avenue improvements from Greenen Avenue to East Main Road.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
A motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to authorize the town administrator to execute the full release documents for the two parcels.
Second?
We have a motion is second. Mr. Brown?
This is related to the Aquinic Avenue project. There's two small areas where we need to execute easements with the Rhode Island Department of Transportation. These are for town properties near the Gaudet School as well as near the drive-in property. Neither one is large, significant in size. They've been reviewed by the solicitor's office as well as the town engineer. There is one difference between the documents that were on the last docket and this one. There's a permanent drainage easement component that was added to each easement. The others are temporary, so we're recommending that you approve the easements this evening.
Peter, you've reviewed the documents from a legal perspective, and
Yes, we have, and one of the main things that we were concerned about, particularly with the temporary easements, is that they would not impede access to the schools, and they do allow for full access to the properties while the project is ongoing. We've confirmed that with DOT.
okay, excellent. Any further discussion? Mr. Welch?
Thank you. Three things. The first one is, it says, based on Department of Transportation right-of-way, review and analysis of appraisal showing the indicated fair market value as established by a qualified appraiser. And so for 5,428 square feet, used for 3 years, the town's getting $1. That does not jive to me. So 5,428 square feet is almost perfectly an eighth of an acre. And if we use $100 an acre as farmland, an eighth of an acre is worth $12.50. And over 3 years, that's $37.50, and we're only getting $1. So that is not even close to being right. second question I have is, what account does the dollar go into?
The dollar would be paid to the state, and it would probably go into their general fund.
What's the reason for the dollar? Is it just,
There has to be some monetary consideration to make the easement
Oh, yeah,
enforceable.
Yep.
That's-
okay.
And lastly, in the mumbo jumbo, if I read it correctly, it says that anything they do to the property, if we take the dollar, then it's good. We call it good. So they're gonna come in and take that property for 3 years, who knows what they're gonna do to it, and then we get it back, right? Do they have to put it back exactly the way they found it, and how do we ensure that happens?
There'll be a decommissioning process at the end to make sure that the property's back in its prior condition. But at the end of the day, this box has to get checked in order for the project to move forward. And it can't move forward without this box being checked.
I can only say we've given easements in the past, and for state jobs and whatever they've done, it was restored back to its original condition.
I'm taking pictures.
And actually, the restoration of that area would be part of the bid package that goes out.
Mrs. Flynn?
Question, and this is the work on Aquinic Avenue,
Yes,
correct? And who pays for that work?
you do.
I do, and who else? It's a state job, correct?
Understood.
It's a state contract.
State
So
contract.
so we pay, but we pay as do every other member of Rhode Island.
Of Rhode Island, yes, ma'am.
So I think it's a fair exchange.
Yeah.
And lastly, just, I'll
Yes, sir.
complain about it again, is this schematic diagram is awful. It is of no use, it was a waste of the ink that is on the paper. If they're gonna put it on there, can we at least be able to read it?
I agree with you. It was very
Yeah,
difficult.
I totally agree.
Agreed?
Yep. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Number 17, communication of tax assessor in reference to cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion received said communication.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And number 18, resolution of the council in reference to cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass said resolution.
We have a motion, a second, to pass said resolution. Any discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Number 19, communication of tax assessor and finance director in reference to cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion received said communication.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Number 20, resolution of the council in reference to cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
We have a motion, a second, to pass. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Motion to act as Board of License Commission.
Second?
We have a motion, a second, to act as a Board of License Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Does anybody oppose? Okay, acting as a Board of License Commission. Number 21, application of Mykono Pizza, LLC, DBA Mykono Pizza Pub, 59 Aquinic Avenue, for a Class B-V liquor license to be used at the same premises. This is new. Council action is to order this application advertised for a public hearing and notify abutters of the public hearing to be held on January 18th, 2022.
Motion receives said application, advertised for public hearing, and notify abutters of public hearing to be held on January 18th, 2022.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? Nick, I know you're here tonight. I spoke to you out in the hallway before the meeting started. Do you have any questions? You understand? We're just going to advertise that we have to advertise this by law and notify the abutters within 200 feet of that property. Okay? If you have any resistance to any abutters, I would recommend you go talk to them and let them know what you're doing. Okay? And if it does pass, I hope your pizza's really good. Okay. You're welcome. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay.
Motion to reconvene as town council.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to reconvene as town council. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's move on to the consent calendar. Any councils like to pull any items off of the consent calendar?
Mr. President, 22 and 23.
22 and 23.
Motion to approve the consent calendar minus items 22 and 23.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item number 22, approval of minutes in reference to regular meeting, November 1st, 2021.
I would request that we continue these items so I could have a chance to review them. It's a very, very tough time of year to take a pretty full agenda and go through minutes.
Okay.
Motion to continue until our next meeting.
Okay, motion to continue to the next regular council meeting. Any further discussion? Oh, we need a second.
Second.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
This means that the town clerk is going to copy this again. This makes the second time that this has been, no, it'll be 3 times.
No, second.
Second time that this has been copied.
I'm perfectly fine with keeping what we have and using them. I would have for numbers 5 through 20 as well.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 23, approval of minutes in reference to special meeting, November 13th, 2021.
Motion to put this off until the next meeting.
Second?
Okay, motion to continue to the first regular scheduled meeting in January. And we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let's move on to licenses and permits. Number 26, application for a special event permit from St. George's School, 372 Purgatory Road, for the St. George's School 125th anniversary celebration to be held beginning May 13, 2022 through May 15, 2022. It's a gala celebration in the tent. The gala celebration is in the tent on May 14, 2022 from 6 to 11 p.m. And I was informed earlier that the fireworks will not happen, that they have been taken out. I'm going to read that in anyway. Fireworks on May 14, 2022, begin around 9 p.m.
Motion to grant said special event permit.
Second?
We have a motion to second to grant. Mr. Lombardi.
Hi, Rick Lombardi, Director of Campus Safety, St. George's School. I live at 6 Orville Drive in Middletown. I think the request is pretty self-explanatory. It's the 125th anniversary of St. George's School. The fireworks have been taken off the table, so they will not happen. I'd like to put that on the record tonight officially. Other than that, if anyone on the council has any further questions, I'm here to help you out and answer.
You're in charge of security down there?
Correct.
And I have the utmost confidence there'll be no issues.
It's safe.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we're gonna have to motion to approve this minus the fireworks. Okay? Or grant said license, said special event permit.
Motion to grant said special event permit without the fireworks.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you, Rick.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Congratulations to St.
Merry
George's.
Christmas. Number 27, application of AAR Mans 1 LLC DBA Newport Mart, 52 East Main Road for a holiday sales license for the 2021-2022 licensing year. This is new.
Motion to grant said license.
Second?
Motion is second to grant. Any discussion? Wendy, we're good? Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Number 28, application of Lebrec Sucre, LLB, DBA, Lebec Soleil, 700 Aquinic Avenue. You didn't know I knew French, did you? For a victualling house license for the 2021-2022 licensing year. This is new.
Motion to grant said subject to building official, fire marshal, and Board of Health approvals.
Second?
Okay, is there any discussion? This Barnaby? Yes, sir, come on up. I'm gonna tell you, if you haven't gone there and had on a weekend or during the day whenever he's open, the Barnaby special, it's named after him, it's off the chart.
Oh, that wasn't my choice. It was my wife who, I had no idea what to call it, and so she called it after me, and I've been embarrassed.
I always knew when I walked in there you weren't in charge, but go ahead, sir.
I've been embarrassed
Yeah.
ever since. So just to follow up, my building inspection was done today, and it was approved. My fire marshal was done today, it was approved. And the Board of Health did it last Wednesday, and it was approved.
Okay.
So subject, everything should be good, and we should be open by February 1st.
And this is something different than the bakery.
So it's about 50 feet away. It's still in the Polo Center.
Yep.
So the bec sucré, your accent wasn't so bad. But so the bec sucré, the sugared beak, we're going to continue doing our pastries, our,
Yep.
our sweet stuff, and then we're opening up the bec salé, the salted beak, and that's going to be everything savory. So it's going to be both in the Polo Center, just in time for the new construction.
There you go.
But then again, we opened up March 18th of 2020, so we're used to hardship anyway. So there you go. I'm sorry.
I have a
Mrs.
question.
Sanos, yes.
Did you teach how to speak French?
We did a quick course out back before.
No, listen, I drive by it all the time, and,
Thank you.
yeah, I nailed it, so, after a lot of practice, you know?
So thank you very much for the approval, and we hope to see you there soon.
Okay, thank you. Good luck to you. Appreciate what you do over there. So we have a motion to grant, based on, subject to the building official and fire marshal and board of health approvals. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, let's move on to number 29, public hearing. Public hearing advertised. The public hearing remains open. In ordinance of the Town of Middletown, this is the second reading. In ordinance amendment to the Town Code of the Town of Middletown, Title 15, Land Use, Chapter 152, Zoning Code, amending Section 27A04C and Section 27A07E of Article 27A, Mixed Use Development.
Public hearing remains open.
Okay. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of, or speak about anything about this public hearing, this mixed-use development? Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Town Clerk, could you please put up the document I sent for you today, not the one labeled mixed use, but the other one, which is the ordinance, just to review it didn't get in the docket online for the public, so I'm just going to run through the first couple sections of the purpose, which we covered a little bit last time. Thank you. You might have to scroll down a little bit, Nate, as I go through it. And I'm just going to summarize very quickly. Sections 27A00 and 01 are at the very beginning of the ordinance. We only publish the pieces that are getting amended or proposed to be amended. And although they didn't make it onto the docket, they'll make it into the minutes. And I just wanted to remind the council very quickly the purpose of this ordinance. It's a really important ordinance for our town because it's going to shape what our town looks like, I feel. And just very quickly, I'm going to run through these. In the first one, letter A, to preserve open land and community character. The purpose is also letter B, avoid large-scale areas of business and ensure a relationship with residents and businesses. C, promote a safe, walkable environment. D, provide for compatible uses. E, provide development that serves the residents of the area, reducing automobile use. F, preserve sceneries. And G, encourage residential uses. At the December 6th meeting, there's two changes being proposed, two amendments. And we talked about height, and we heard that despite verbiage that might restrict discretion on height, height shall be less than 40, that anyone has the right to apply for relief. We talked about hardships a little bit. And it does speak to the really important role of the members of the planning and zoning boards in how any community ends up looking. So that being said, could you please put up the mixed use document? And it's important to share some information about mixed use so the council can understand the implications, because this is going to apply town-wide. So what I have here is, and this is online, and you have it in front of you on the dais. It's different mixed-use configurations. And I'm just going to chat a little bit about what's on the screen. So the light lime green on the parcel indicates residential. The rust or red colored represents living, working. And what the blurb says at the top that you can't read is that vertical mixed use, and that's up and down, combines different uses in the same building. Lower floors should have more public uses with more private uses on the upper floors. For example, you might have retail on the first floor, and then offices on the second floor, and the uppermost floors would be some sort of residential. If you could scroll down, please. Now, so that's vertical. That's the type of mixed use that you see in Newport on Broadway. You've got all the stores right on the bottom, and then above them are typically apartments. Now, in a horizontal mixed-use configuration, same color code. The lime green is residential, and the rust or red is living, working. And you'll notice that with horizontal, they've got the residentials in a cluster, and then the businesses in a perimeter. And this speaks to compatibility of uses. If you could scroll down, please. One of the examples that is given, keep going, till you get to the Uptown District. This is an example in California that uses that horizontal mixed-use configuration. And again, you see the businesses are on the perimeter, and the residences are sort of clustered in the middle, clustered together. And if you'll scroll down further, please, Nate, thank you. Now, this is a photograph of what you just saw in the animation of it's that same shape, and you see the houses are over there on the right together, and then where the big parking lot is, that's more of the commercial or business end of that particular development. So if you'll scroll down, please, Nate. One of the examples that the planning board talked about when doing the mixed-use ordinance was South County Commons. Most people have been by there or know of it, and I think it's Wakefield. And this is a picture off of their website. And I wanted to note, or have you note, that in the back, you see sort of the residentials. Way in the upper right corner, that's a residential cluster, and along the back is residentials. As you come into the foreground, you start to see more parking areas, more lights. That's more of the business area. And I'm showing this because it's very notable. I actually called the leasing agent of South County Commons to get a better idea as to really what's there. And he said that they actually don't have any of the vertical mixed use, top and bottom. Anything that's over their businesses are offices. They don't have living area over their businesses, any of their entertainment, their restaurants, it's all offices. And the reason I bring it up is because this ordinance does not specify configuration compatibility, and it concerns me. It does expose the town to having a failed mixed-use project, and I think the council just needs to be aware of that. To be educated to make really good decisions for the town. In Chapter 30 in the Middletown Code of Ordinances under Town Council, it actually states, "No ordinance or resolution shall be so amended in its passage as to change its original purpose," which is why I brought up the purpose, so that we are keeping that in mind as we consider amendments. That being said, the fact that we have also heard that any applicant can ask for relief for any part of an ordinance really puts us in a very precarious situation to make sure that as we go forward, we are doing best for Middletown. So that being said, I wanted to address the two amendments that are being proposed. The 35-foot we talked about last time. We may want to consider leaving that alone so that we retain that community integrity and scenery, that open space as part of the purpose of the ordinance. And it seems that the restaurants, the other part was to leave restaurants or allow restaurants in limited business areas to be open until 10 o'clock p.m. instead of 8. And I think that that would work if it was a horizontal mixed use as opposed to a vertical mixed use development. So I might suggest that we add that phrase to read, except that hours of operation for restaurants in limited business district shall be limited to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. in a horizontal mixed use configuration. So that's information and suggestions I would have on these amendments that have been put forward to us tonight. Back to you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Paul, can I ask you a question? I don't mean to put you on the spot, sir, but. I don't mean to, but I have to. I'm sorry. So, with what Mrs. Flynn just explained to us, did the planning board look at horizontal versus vertical?
We did not.
Okay. Any particular reason?
It wasn't brought up and it wasn't part of the discussion.
I can't hear you, Paul.
We did talk about using South County Commons as an example, but we never discussed horizontal versus vertical specifically. I don't see a problem with what Terry is saying, that could be added. I don't know if Ron would like to comment also, but I think we've got to get this on the books to help Middletown. Mixed use is,
Yeah, okay. Mr. Regan.
My only concern, as Paul mentioned, there is no definition for horizontal versus vertical development. There's no preference for one type of development over another one. The idea here was to have some flexibility to encourage mixed-use development, and my concern is if you add that component now, or if you're interested in doing it, not that I want to send this back to the planning board another time, but now we're introduced, that's a major change to the nature of this mixed-use ordinance that has not been vetted or not been discussed. And so I hesitate to see you do that when what's on the agenda are two very limited changes to the existing ordinance. If the council wants to have the planning board separately take a look at that particular issue, which I agree wasn't discussed over the long period of time that this was put together, then I would suggest maybe that's a separate issue. But
Well, it was discussed, it just wasn't put in writing. They did discuss South County.
it was mentioned, but I don't, once again, the difference between a vertical integration versus horizontal integration.
I gotta be honest with you, once I heard that and it started making sense, I agree this is separate, this is something needs to be on the books, but that doesn't mean it can't be amended or have them look at it, because I think that is the way to go.
But there, and once again, I think there may be other examples, and once again, the idea is to,
How would this affect the current proposals for the West Main Road?
I don't know specifically, but that's another concern is you know, and the council will have an opportunity to look specifically at the plans for that development and to discuss potentially other changes to the ordinance in connection with that. So once again, what's on the docket tonight, and I'm not saying that this isn't an issue that shouldn't be looked at, but what's on the docket tonight are two relatively small changes to this ordinance, and this issue that's been raised is something that would be a big change, a major change to the ordinance. I think would require further discussion, as well as some further discussion at the planning board, and might have impact, positive or negative, on the West Main Road development.
Okay,
I would agree with that, by the way.
okay. Would it make sense that if the council goes forward with this tonight, and then have you guys look at, because whoever comes forward, it's gonna be that group we approved, right? They come forward, we don't have to approve of those plans. We're gonna tell them what we wanna see, right?
Exactly.
Right.
And Mr. President, for the ordinance, because the ordinance is on the books right now, I think that until the planning board looks at these different configurations and outlines what is going to be good for Middletown, that the amendments may not go through tonight because people can take their requests and get relief. That's the issue, is that you either make it by right or you have them go and get relief and make sure that that extended time frame is not going to be burdensome in the location that it's at.
I'm not following you.
So the ordinance, we can, if say it was approved, we approve the amendments, well, then it's on the books, and someone can stay open till 10 o'clock, no matter where they are. It's allowed by right.
We have businesses open till 10 o'clock all over the place.
Well, this would be in a mixed-use situation, and so you would be allowing on the books for a restaurant to open and have someone trying to reside right upstairs. Whereas if we leave it the same, 8 o'clock for now, and we work on the different configurations, vertical and horizontal, but if somebody is in a spot where, maybe it's a mixed use, but they're the top and bottom of the restaurant, and they want to be open till 10 instead of 8, they can go for relief, as opposed to just saying, yes, anybody doing this?
You couldn't go for relief for hours of operation. That's not something that the zoning board could grant.
They can put that as a
relief
restriction.
from things like height and setbacks and lot coverage and those sort of dimensional requirements under the zoning code, but the zoning board wouldn't be granting relief with regard to hours of operation. If a restaurant came in, let's say, for example, for licensing, victualling license, liquor license, that's something that the council could deal with in terms of hours of operation and that sort of thing.
So they would come here for relief to council?
They come here for
Yes.
a request, but once again, if the ordinance says you got to stay open, you can't stay open past 8, then for the council to allow it to go to 10, I think you'd have to amend the ordinance at that point.
You can't do it by business, by location, and neighbor consideration?
Well, I think the council does that anytime, like, for example, when it comes in for a liquor license, and, hours of operation are on the table. Someone comes in for an entertainment license, and conditions and hours of operation, and what type of amplification, those things are on the table, and the council has the discretion and authority to try to make sure that they're compatible with the surrounding areas.
But typically, we couldn't say as a council, you have to close earlier than what the ordinance allows. I believe that has been input from you that.
Well, I understand, but if there's a liquor license involved or other things, once again, I'm just saying that this is something that requires further discussion and vetting, because once again, we're talking about a major change to the ordinance here, and once again, you may have a large development like this, you may have a relatively small mixed-use development that doesn't allow for horizontal integration and those sorts of things. But once again, I think you have to take your time with this topic.
Okay.
And I think the planning board would want to be involved, or should be involved.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Paul. Any further discussion? Mrs. Sanos.
I'd like to ask
Paul?
the planning board chairman a question.
Mrs. Sanos, sorry, sir. Mrs. Sanos.
I'll be very brief.
You notice she waited till you got about 20 feet away.
I asked you before, you didn't respond.
Go right ahead, sir.
I'm a sir now?
No, I'm talking.
Oh.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a question. For one who's been in Middletown for a number of years, I've seen a lot of changes. Now, these changes at mixed-use development, where are those changes coming from? Are they coming from a developer? I don't give a damn about the developer. This is Middletown. We care about our residents. Why all these changes all of a sudden? Is it for the benefit of a developer? Are they coming forth and asking for these changes?
We have had applications come in, yes. When I first learned about the mixed-use approach, it was through the planning department, not through an application. That's just my personal experience when I was first exposed to it. I should say the first time I saw it was at South County Commons.
Okay.
Ms. Santos, it's also, mixed-use development is also a component of the comprehensive plan.
I realize that. But we've lost so much. Where is Middletown going with all these changes? Our vacant land, our farmlands are gone, vacant land has almost disappeared. Where are we going with this? We're gonna build, 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 we're gonna be sinking.
Well, I think a large component of it goes back to the housing. I mean, we started off the meeting tonight looking for housing opportunities, housing units for people within town. We live on an island. Middletown is really built out, and these are areas where there's opportunities to develop the units that are necessary. So you are right, we are building, but I think we're trying to address a need within the community. The mixed use thing I know has come up. There's the ordinance for the old farm property. I mean, I think this is something, you know, planning and zoning is not my strength, but it is a topic that's been in this room since I've been here.
I realize that,
Trying
yes,
to
sir.
reconcile, you know, is it gonna be a giant supermarket, or is it gonna be more of a community when we do the master plan? So, I mean, I think there is you know, there's a negative side to it, there's a positive, and I think we're trying to solve problems for residents. My observation. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Thank you for your answers, both of you. That's not saying that I like it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Okay, any further discussion? Is there anyone else that'd like to speak on this ordinance? It is the second reading. Any counselors have any input? Okay. Mr. Welch.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah.
Oh,
You do have something to say.
oh, you meant personally. Motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adopt said ordinance on its second reading.
Second?
We have a motion is second to adopt said ordinance in its second reading. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we have 2 opposed. Okay, excellent. Let's move on to number 30. An ordinance of the Town of Middletown, this is the second reading also. An ordinance amendment to the Town Code of the Town of Middletown, Title III, Administration, Chapter 34, Taxes, Section 34.70, Tax Classification System.
Motion to adopt said ordinance on its second reading.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to adopt said ordinance in its second reading. Discussion. Peter?
Mr. President, thank you. So, based on the discussion at the last meeting on the first reading of this draft ordinance,
Peter, can you speak into that mic, please?
I thought it'd be louder when I took my mask off, but.
Oh. Thank you.
So based on the discussion at the first reading of this draft ordinance, I did provide some proposed revisions, and I just want to walk through each of those, and then there's at least one on which I would be looking for some additional direction from the council. So one of the concerns that was raised is under the state law, we could have up to a 50% difference in the owner-occupied rate and the non-owner occupied rate. So the state law would prohibit us from charging more than 50% higher on the effective rate on the non-owner occupied properties than on owner occupied properties. The council at the last meeting indicated that they would like to perhaps have the ordinance have a lower percentage than that, so the gap wouldn't be potentially quite that large. So I have added a revision to Section 1. The council would need to pick what that lower percentage would be based on some of the scenarios that Sean put forth in his memo, but that would be a revision to Section 1. With regard to Section 1A, there was also concern that it would be onerous to reapply every year, so I've changed that from 1 year to 3, and that sort of goes with the 3-year revaluation cycle, because in speaking with the administration, it would be important to re-verify this information periodically. So that's the second revision. I did correct a typo with regard to the numbering in Section A1C. Also indicated that the first year of the program, if this is adopted, the applications would be due between January 1 and, should say, May 1st, not May 2nd, to give additional time that first year, and thereafter it would follow the usual cycle for our exemptions of January 1 through March 15th. Also, at the last meeting, there was a question that came up, someone who owned a property in Middletown that a family member lived, and they didn't rent it, but the family member resided there, and could that somehow be accommodated? We did take a look at that and determined that it really couldn't be, because under state law, we can have owner-occupied rates and non-owner-occupied rates, and if I buy a house for one of my kids, it's titled in my name, but they live there and I live somewhere else, it's not an owner-occupied property by definition, so state law would not allow us to accommodate that particular situation. So I did not make a revision on that item. And the last issue was, and this is the one where I think we need some direction from the council. If I have a house and let's say I'm a resident of Middletown, I vote here, I live here for more than half the year, but then for several months I go to Florida. And during that period of time, I rent out my house. Is that something that the council wants to accommodate as still an owner-occupied property, assuming that I'm there for living there, occupying for more than half the year, voting here, meeting all those other requirements? That was another issue that came up. Certainly if somebody has a roommate or they rent out a room in the house, but they're still living there the whole time, certainly we can accommodate that because it's still an owner-occupied property. Someone rents out a room to help make ends meet, that would not be disqualifying. But the other issue is if I go down south or somewhere for a few months or even a few weeks and I rent the property in the meantime, is that something that the council wants to accommodate? That was part of the discussion.
Thank you, Peter. Mrs. Santos.
Thank you, sir. Just a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
With those changes, if the person goes down to Florida, say, a week, 2 months, and he rents, who's going to keep track of that? Who's going to know? There's a lot of things in this town that nobody knows about.
Well, and I agree, Mrs. Santos. It's also the situation where if I'm applying for senior exemption and I'm saying that I'm a resident of Middletown and I'm not getting an exemption down in Florida and I'm signing under oath my application, there's a certain amount of trust, I suppose, that goes on, and you know, we try to verify as much as we can, which is why we want people to reapply periodically to make sure their situation hasn't changed. But that was one of the questions that came up at the last meeting. If I am, I mean, it's clearly if I go down to Florida and leave my house empty, or I've got a family member living there and they're not paying rent, no change, that's fine, it's still an owner-occupied house. The question is if I'm renting it out for some period of time when I'm not living there, would that still qualify? And the problem is the state law doesn't just says we can have an owner-occupied rate and a non-owner-occupied rate, and it doesn't define what those things mean.
Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, it does define owner-occupied. Didn't we define it that they had to be a registered voter in Middletown?
No, I'm saying the state law doesn't.
Oh, the state, okay.
The state law does not define it, so it's sort of, to a certain extent,
So the
it's up.
conversation last meeting was that some people, they travel like in the summer times if they're a teacher to go see family, and they might, you know, rent out their house, or they take, you know, a vacate, whatever it is, for whatever reason. And should, you know, they not get the relief of this program when taxes and maintenance and utilities, everything is going up on this island? And so the conversation really was, you know, should they not get as much relief as they can? It's not as if, you know, it's a home for profit. It's their home where they live. They're owner occupied. And that's up to the council, but that was the conversation. Relief is needed across the board. A little bit of rent here or there, it is not going to, you know, change their status financially. So keep them out of debt to pay their taxes.
Anybody have any further conversation? I don't, Mr. Welch?
No, Chris.
Oh, Chris,
I
sorry.
was just going to say, this was something that we had talked about on the short-term rental committee, is redefining the rental parameters outside of short-term. So within 31 days or less, a month period that was defined as short-term? Should we create another ordinance that looks at those half-year rentals to satisfy this situation? And then should we give relief to those who yet rent year-round? Because there's situations in this town where we have a resident who owns 2 homes. He rents 1 home year-round to 2 family members. The home that he rents is worth significantly more than the home he actually resides in. This is going to hurt him, and he's a year-round resident.
And that,
I mean, the scales are going to tip because his assessed value on the property that he's renting is twice that of the home he actually resides in.
and that's where the first edit, I think, that the town solicitor mentioned in section A1 to reduce that
Correct.
50% to a lower number, whether it's, 20 or 25 or 10, whatever the council would decide, because we do have a lot of Middletowners who own multiple properties, and, this is not to, reach into other people's pockets a great degree. It's just to give relief to those who are registered voters here. So I think it's a combination conversation.
I just think the one issue about what do we look at from an ordinance perspective for renters beyond the short-term definition is something we have to take up. And it came out of the committee, and it came from both sides to look at that. So that's something I will make a point to bring that up, so that hopefully that'll address part of.
But the one issue, because once again, that matter came up, what if the second home that I own in Middletown, I've got family living there. Well, that's still not an owner-occupied
Correct.
property, and so even if we wanted to, we couldn't allow the owner-occupied rate to apply to that property because it's not, by definition, if the owner's not living there, it's not an owner-occupied property.
I get that completely.
Yeah.
And the thing that I've lost sleep on this is that when we first talked about what the percentage rate should be, we would really be doing a disservice to these handful of individuals that I've spoken to about this, because they are just that. Their second property is year-round rental to family members.
And you all, I'm sure you all know this, that 50% rule, that is the max difference the rates could be. So what we're talking about here with this other revision is, say, basically lowering the max that the council could do at any time by ordinance. Because even though it says 50%, every 3 years you could set that rate, but it doesn't have to be 50, it could be 10, it could be 15. But if you want to have a provision that restricts that further, then that's what that number you would have to select would be.
Mr. Welch.
So just generally, I think that to try to define someone that isn't owner-occupied is going to be extremely difficult. So I am in favor of drawing a black and white line between either you're there or you're not. But I also agree that the difference, the percentage, rather than being 50% more, should be more of a token, because, and maybe this isn't fair, but I don't, Chris, whoever you're speaking of, the fact that you own 2 homes, to me, or the fact that you go to Florida for 3 months, means that you're a little better off than the senior that is in her house by herself all year round and on a fixed income struggling. That's the person that I see this addressing, and therefore it's a little bit, it's not going to kill the person with 2 homes or the other person that's going to Florida, so I think that's how we should do it.
Okay. Dennis.
And I would agree with that as long as it's a token. If you create a 20 to 30% divide, it's going to cause other issues. And I think that's a big number. So I'm in favor of reducing this down to a token amount. And I do agree also that trying to enforce who's in that house, what's in that house, we can't do it today. So to try to add something else to this, I don't have the confidence that we could manage it. And to have this type of thing, you got to be able to manage it. So I think we've got to say, hey, if you're a full-time, if you vote here in Middletown and you're paying taxes on that house and you declare that as your residence, then we have to have the faith that they are telling us the truth. And we gotta say it's their full-time residents, even if they are renting it out for a month or for 3 months or, you know, I just think that, you know, it'll make it easier to manage going forward. And if it's a token, we won't be so concerned about it. But if it's 30 to 40%, we're gonna be concerned about it, okay? So that's what I would vote for.
What do you mean, on second homes?
No, on your first home. If we create a delta, like, as I mentioned, Providence has a homestead, which is 40%. So a full-time resident gets 40% off their taxes, which gets handed over to non-residents, and they also have it to the businesses. If it's only 5%, it's a different conversation. It's not 20% or 25%. And this, the way it's written right now, if we don't decrease that, it could go up to 50% between residents and non-residents. And
Hey, I have no
there's
issue
some
with
people
that.
who might be in favor of that.
Yeah, I mean,
There's other vehicles for it. I just think it's a tight rope here.
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the number is, but I certainly don't have any problem giving the best break we can to full-time residents. I mean, that was the design behind here. I also have no issue to your question for some guidance, and I'm one vote to, if you own a place and you go to Florida for 3 months, I have no issue with that either. We just can't police that. And if you meet the criteria of full-time resident here more than 6 months, you're a registered voter here, you know, we can't enforce what we have now. The idea is to give residents, full-time residents that meet the criteria, a break, and to keep their taxes as low as we can get them. At the same time, somebody's paying for that. So it's the people that are non-residents, or, you know, and there are some residents that have second homes that rent to family members, and you don't meet the criteria, but you're getting a break on your primary home, so that should help.
Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'd like to propose, so we can kind of get this down to a motion, that we consider 15% for the delta, and that we eliminate what is now paragraph, A1C4.
Terry, percentages mean nothing to me. I want to see dollars.
Well, the 20%
on
delta.
top of today versus tomorrow,
So
if this passes.
a 20% delta, if the tax rate is.
Sound like Louis De Palma when I was on the council with him. Deltas he would talk about all the time.
So if the tax rate, or the effective tax rate is, I think it's $12.02, based on the town administrator's scenario that he did on his PowerPoint a few weeks back. So let's just round it to $10. If it's 20%, then the owner-occupied rate, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Brown, would be $10. And and it may have to shift because of whatever the budget number is, because the budget actually determines the mill rate, but you're gonna add $2 to the non-owner occupied, so they would pay 20%, I think I said 15%, so it'd be $1.50 more. So it'd be $11.50 and $10 would be the two mill rates.
Let me ask Sean a question. Sean, are you looking for any dollar amounts tonight, or are we just looking to pass the ordinance?
We're looking to pass the ordinance. I guess I'm
I think
afraid of
there's
what I'm
more
hearing.
to it than just throwing numbers out, and I know your intentions are good, but I think there's more to it from a budget perspective.
So the section of the ordinance, and I think what we're talking about, is capping the split between the two rates that can occur, which is set at 50%. I don't, it's not setting a tax.
It's not setting anything,
Yeah.
right.
That rate, that split would be set the same way that you would set the split between the commercial and the residential rate. That would be set during the budget process. But what we're talking about here is a cap of some number lower than 50.
Okay.
It's not saying that we're gonna go 15.
That's all we're talking about
To
tonight.
say the max
Right.
that this can go is 15.
Right,
But it doesn't mean that's what we're gonna do today.
right. We don't know what the number is.
Might say something else.
We don't know what the number
Move into it a little, yeah.
Okay. So you want to start again, or?
Well, so I guess I was throwing to my colleagues a 15% and then eliminate the one line about renting.
You're saying 15% cap?
15% split maximum. So
Where do you get that number from?
So I was looking at the PowerPoint that Sean did, and he, hold on, I have to bring it up again. And so he put together baseline effective tax rates, and he actually used dollar amounts, and I believe that his analysis started with 67 cents residential split, and then they did one for $1.44, and then he did one for $2.20, and he went all the way up to the $4.50 difference. So the 15% sort of falls in that $2 difference. It's a little bit less. And again, until you have a budget number, you don't know what the exact mill rate would be to, you know, with the assessments and whatnot.
Do you know what it would be today?
What it would be today.
Yep. With today's mill rate, what the split would be dollar-wise?
Well, I could tell you, well, yeah, it would, given today's residential rate, which is, where are we at, 12, is it 1202? Then you would, so the other one would be not more than 15% of 1202. 1202 times 1.15. It would, because it could be less than 15%. That would be the cap. It could be 5%. It could be 7%. It could be 9%. But that it would be not more than 15% higher than the owner occupied.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to propose that, you can propose that. I think we should just stick with what we're allowable to do under law. Let's see what we get for numbers and go from there from a budget perspective. Because we are facing some issues coming at us budget-wise. And who knows where those numbers are going to fall. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Well, you're not wrong in that it's capped to 50%.
I don't own a second home, so I don't have any issue with it. It's not a problem for me to go as much as I can.
Well, I guess I'm considering the community as a whole, and like,
Yeah.
you know, we talked about, we all know people who have multiple properties, and
I
honestly,
would say the majority of people don't.
in Middletown, well, I'm sure that's,
So our job is to represent the majority, not the minority. So that's just my opinion. I don't have any numbers to back that up. I'm just saying.
Well, I would agree. I mean, we're here to represent all the residents of Middletown, whether they're full-time residents or part-time residents. These are taxpayers in Middletown. So I think we've got to keep everybody's opinion, you know, everything in consideration. A lot of these homes that we're taxing right now are paying a lot of the taxes today. These folks that are living in this town who have second homes are paying, and I'd like to see the number, but you'll probably see that it's a pretty big tax.
I'm sure it is, and I don't feel bad for them, to be honest with you.
Well, you can say, and that's fine.
Yep.
I mean, that's your opinion on that.
Yes, sir.
I think from the standpoint, the issue that, you know, you're talking about affordability for full-time residents.
Yep.
Well, I think the bigger issue is that the housing pricing is going through the roof, and their taxes are going through the roof. So, you know, there are other ways of also addressing this, and when we did research on this type of plan, and it's very similar to the homestead, okay? It was deemed by RIPEC not to be a valid, they didn't recommend it. They did not recommend the homestead, right? And when we talked to other communities that had something like this, which is helping the citizens who are full-time residents, they said that it did create some division in their community. And because the conversation then comes back from the residents who aren't here full-time, well, I don't have any kids in your school, and I don't use town services, and I'm paying a pretty big chunk of change now. So that's just the other argument, and I'm not saying I agree with their opinion on that or not. I think that's a combination, and that's why I encourage, and I know that we're just voting on a cap, but I encourage us to keep it as a token level, and then keep looking for ways to create that predictability for our full-time residents as well as our part-time residents. Right now, we're increasing for seniors, for veterans, and now we're looking at homestead, or we're looking at a different rate for residential. And at this rate, if the average home is somewhere around, let's say someone has a home that's assessed for $400,000 and they're a senior, right now, if we pass this and we say we went to 15%, they would be looking at probably close to 20 to 25% off their taxes by a combination of all three of these, okay? And then we can do more.
We're not looking to set a rate tonight, though. We're looking to pass.
I agree, but I think if
When we get numbers come back, then we can make an educated decision on where we want to put it. We can't make that decision tonight and just throw, well, I want it to be 5% or 10%. We have to wait for numbers to come back to be able to make a decision. I can't make a decision. All I'm looking to do is, you know, what's allowed by law, and I think will be fair and equitable when we see the numbers come in. That's the way I look at it. Mr. Regan, you were looking for some type of direction on, if somebody goes to Florida.
Yes, so
6
that's,
months if they're all right.
so that was the other issue, is it, do we want to say call owner occupied, you're occupying the property for more than 6 months of the year, and you get it, or do we want to say, if you are renting out the entire dwelling for any portion of time, which is as it's written now, that you don't qualify for it? So that's really that's the question there that.
I thought it was going to be if you are a registered voter, you qualified.
No, it's if it's an owner-occupied property, being a registered voter is one of those requirements to show that this is your owner-occupied primary residence. Another requirement is you're not getting a similar exemption in some other state or some other town. But it's not, being a registered voter is not the key thing. Being an owner-occupied property is the key thing, because if I was just a registered voter, then all my houses would qualify. So once again, it's.
Well, of the address that you have on your voter record, you can only have one address.
I agree. So once again, that's.
Primary residence, I think, is the key to that.
Yep, exactly. So once again, the question is, if someone rents it out for a couple of weeks or a couple of months, should they be entitled to this break or not? And that's what.
I see no, my opinion is I see no reason not to be. I think they should, as long as it's their primary residence, they're a registered voter.
And they occupy the property for
6 months or more.
for more than half the year.
Yeah. Anybody have any issue with that? I know you're not happy about it.
No, I'm not happy because I don't think, I think the two are tied together. If you're saying we're not gonna set the rate tonight, which is fine, I understand that, until we get some numbers back. But you wanna define who it's gonna hit without knowing what the rate is, I don't see how you can do one without the other. So in other words, if you're saying that that person can go to Florida for 5 months, and the rate's gonna be, you know, they're gonna get a 50% less, because that's the cap, and I'm just using the extreme. To me, I wouldn't vote for that. But if you told me it was 5%, and we're gonna let anything over 6 months that you're here qualify you as a resident, then I'm okay with it. But without knowing the rate, I'm only one vote.
No, I understand. I'm trying to process your rationale in my head.
It's already 9 o'clock.
Okay. All right, what's the pleasure? We're gonna move on this. You know where I stand on it. Let's take a vote. You wanna vote on them separate?
Has a motion been read?
No.
Okay.
You would vote to amend.
No, just adopt yes, it has, adopt the ordinance in its second reading.
So,
We have that, and it's been seconded, so we'd have to tackle that first. And if it doesn't pass, then we'll tackle something separate. Okay? Okay, so, and Wendy, that's proper protocol, correct? Okay. So we have a motion to adopt said ordinance on its second reading. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it fails. Okay. So, how do you want to tackle this now? Because I don't want to waste any more time on this.
Make a new motion.
As long as it doesn't include a cap.
How about a split?
We don't have numbers to do that yet, because we're
So-
gonna end up changing it.
Adopt the ordinance eliminating the paragraph on renting. Eliminate number 5 under 1, let's see.
It would be, that section you're referring to is section A1, C
4,
4.
page 2.
And if you're going to do that, I would recommend that we replace that with a provision saying that the property must be occupied by the owner for more than 6 months of the year in its place.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's,
Okay.
What do they do, 6 months and 1 day? Isn't that what they say?
More than 6 months.
Yeah, more than 6 months.
Yeah, said more than 6 months.
Terry,
it's on page 2.
Yep. Okay.
Red number 4.
Just reiterate that so we're all clear.
Adopt the ordinance as written with the change on page 2, red number 4, to read that, I'm not sure that's actually where it would go. Eliminate that line on number 4 on page 2 and add that the owner must reside in the home for more than 6 months. And I'm not sure where that would go appropriately.
It would have to be their primary residence, right?
Yes.
Okay. So one more time,
No.
please.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance, eliminating the line on A1C4. I think it's actually C14, if I'm reading this right. That reads, "A dwelling unit that is leased or rented for any portion of the year shall not be deemed to be owner-occupied." That is to be eliminated. And we are adding in the ordinance that the owner must reside in the property for more than 6 months of the year to qualify.
We have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I have a question. So, Terry, you're not proposing to a lower margin, or lower gap between the rates? You're gonna leave it at 50%?
The council president said,
I'm one vote. You guys do what you want. I'm gonna vote against that. I'm gonna let you know, because if we try and lower the cap, we don't have numbers to do that yet.
can I respond?
Yes, of course you can.
Okay, I just didn't know, at what point the conversation stops when the motions are trying to be, because we do have a second. So I guess the only point of having a token cap is because this is a new ordinance and we don't want those unintended consequences. We don't want, people to panic, it's unknown, it's different. It works successfully in many, many communities, as you well know. However, out of consideration for, as Councilor Toronto says, all of our residents, I think there's a comfort element to just saying, right now, first time through, you don't have to worry about it. It's not going to be more than 15% more than what the owner, the qualified owner occupies. Just a comment to consider, so that, because we're trying it, baby steps, tokens, let's see how it works, in-house, and for our residents, and all taxpayers. And then we can adjust. But that would be the only reason to go forward and add a split.
Then
But,
we'd have to change the ordinance.
well, we changed,
We do it, we're gonna set the rate at some point. It's not gonna be 50%. But
But
if our budget numbers come in and we have to change that ordinance because you're setting a cap on it, that's not right.
well, for the first year, we would use that 15%, and that would be the,
I don't know what the numbers are for the first year. You don't, none of us do.
it's the split, Paul, the,
I understand that. But that split is gonna be factored into the budget. And what we can and can't do based upon, we're gonna start over $1 million in the hole, just so you know.
I know. So look at it this way. If we didn't have this ordinance, everyone would pay the owner-occupied or residential rate. Because whether you're owner-occupied or not owner-occupied, you would pay that flat rate, correct? Everyone would pay the same rate without this ordinance.
Correct.
So all this ordinance really does is it allows, when tax time comes, and that calculation's gonna be made, whether we have this ordinance or not, and everyone will pay the same rate. With this ordinance, it simply allows, when that calculation is done, for us to say, okay, we're gonna have an owner-occupied rate, and then we're gonna have a non-owner-occupied rent, but it won't be more than 15% difference.
I understand that.
I guess, Paul, my question to you.
So we sit up here all the time and say, hey, look, you know, we talk about people not being able to afford to stay in their homes, then they're out. I heard that from Dennis, I don't know how many times come out of your mouth, right? And then today we're saying, well, you know what, because maybe I own a second home, I don't want the rate that high. That's really what we're saying.
I don't, let me, since you directed that towards me a little bit, my personal opinion isn't because it's a second home. I'm not on that bandwagon at all, okay? Again, I'll go back and say, this tool is similar to what we vetted out in regards to homestead. We could offer an exemption to full-time residents, just the way our system is today, just like we do with veterans. We could decide it's $30,000 off your taxes or your assessment, and that's 10% right there. We give 10% to the seniors right now, roughly, if their house is $350,000 on an average. So I just don't think we should create that division. We have enough division in our world today. And if we start saying, well, we're going to wait to see how much our tax burden is going to be, and then we're going to push the whole burden onto non-residents, I don't think that's, I honestly not
I
going
think
for
it's
that.
been, the division's been created with them coming in and buying up the houses and driving up the market.
And
The assessments where our residents can't afford to. That's why the law allows us to do up to a certain percent. Whether it's, we do that or not, that's a different story, but that's just my, it's artificially driven up the assessments in this area. And that's what's happened.
Sure.
And that's why we have something like this before, is what we agree or disagree on as far as the split, that's a different story.
Correct. And I think when you said that, what I've commented about many times is the assessment process and what we're basing people's taxes on. And I think, again, if you go and look at non-residents properties, and I'll ask Sean, do we have a list of all the non-residents in Middletown?
We estimate that in the model, looking at billing addresses and property addresses.
Okay, and where would you say the majority of those properties are?
They're throughout town.
No, would you say, are they in the Easton's Point area? Would you say they're across town evenly?
I don't have that information.
That'd be, I'd like to see that information, actually, just so we know
So
what the dollar amount's gonna be.
It was provided.
Yeah.
You were given an Excel spreadsheet with the analysis, so you already have it.
I don't have a copy of that, sorry.
You were emailed it. Everybody on the council received a copy of the model that we put together.
In the recent email? I'm sorry.
Early on in this process.
Oh, that's early in the process.
Back in October, so.
Oh, October, okay, I'm
And
sorry.
the-
I have it from October.
I might add, Councilor Toronto, that the PowerPoint that was provided had a great breakdown of who would qualify, who wouldn't qualify, and the price point of the properties of those numbers also.
So, Paul, I would agree that, you know, people do move into the town and they buy homes and they use them as second rental, they use them as summer homes. We've recently seen a big influx in people moving into Middletown that are non-residents, and the housing prices are up they're paying $900 to $1 million, which is a pretty big tax base. But the issue is, the person who's been living in that neighborhood whose house was assessed at 400 is going to go up to 500. Because there are certain parts of our neighborhood that I believe where most of these non-residents are, that are driving up properties 20% in those neighborhoods. So the issue we should be discussing is the assessment process, because we've shown that.
Well, we're not talking about that. We can't even get
Well,
past
we
this.
should be a little bit, because the mill rate,
It's not on the docket.
the total taxes, though, are based on your assessed value and the mill rate. So we're not going to discuss the assessed value. We're just going to discuss the mill rate, which I believe the problem is the assessment.
Okay, so that's a whole different story. But that's why the things are going up. And because they're just coming in like in my neighborhood. The same couple bought 3 houses. And all they do is rent them out for $14,000 a week. Do I feel bad about them paying more taxes? Absolutely not, because they can pass it on. The idea behind this was to help our residents to be able to give them a break. They're not passing it on. They're not able to. This will hopefully allow them to catch somewhat of a break here. And that was the design behind it. It wasn't to argue, is it, the state says, okay, you can go 50% more. It says the same thing on commercial. Are we setting a cap on that? No. We set a fair and equitable rate. That's what we're doing.
So I think the conversation, and that's an excellent point,
Yeah.
Mr. President. So when it comes to tax time and the calculations are going on in the finance department, can we safely say to our neighbors and residents who might not be owner-occupied that it's going to be reasonable? It's not going to be...
We're reasonable people. We're not going to gouge people. All we're doing is trying to we don't have the numbers to be able to do that. All we're trying to do is give our residents more of a break and a lot.
There is a motion on the floor and a second, and it's a start.
And that's at 15%, right?
No, that's
No,
not part of the motion.
No,
That is not part of the motion.
Just the,
It's just the elimination of the rental caveat and the fact that you must reside there for over 6 months. Those were the 2 elements.
okay. She just did.
And you seconded it, Mrs. Santos. Thank you.
And the only other thing that I would suggest is we did add in, just to try to get this to the finish line.
Go right ahead, sir.
The original draft, which is the draft that the motion has you applying annually, and it seemed like the council wanted it to be less than that. And so if you want that, then I would also recommend to include the amendment that it be applied for every 3 years. And
the
that
May
the,
1st amendment, I didn't realize they all had to be read in.
Yeah.
My bad.
Well, the motion that was made was to adopt what was in front of you at the first reading with that one change. So if you...
Do you think it
those
should be
two-
every year?
Yes,
Why?
because conditions change all the time.
Okay.
Do the seniors have to apply and the veterans every year? Or they don't?
No. If you're a veteran, you're a veteran. That doesn't change.
And what about that May 1st date? How critical is that, Peter?
Well, there's a blank in the
Oh.
original, so that you just have to, it is kind of critical that you fill that blank in, so
Does it need to be
again,
part of the motion?
it should be part of the motion that, in that section, A1A, that in the first year, the applications would be in by May 1st.
Well, if we have to make, okay, Wendy, what's the process to get all the, okay, I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Second.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that?
Aye.
Okay. So, you want me to try this?
Yep.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance as written with the following changes. That the application be filed every 3 years instead of annually. every 3 years, the revaluation years.
Or just every 3 years?
Okay, every 3 years. That the application date for the first year will be between January 1st and May 1st, 2022. That the line A1C14 be deleted regarding a dwelling unit that is leased or rented for any portion of the year shall not be deemed to be owner occupied. And the numbering's corrected, and that the owner to qualify must reside in the property for more than 6 months.
How many months?
More than 6.
Oh, thank you.
Do I have a second?
Any further discussion?
Yes, please. Okay, so, again, Terry, this is, you and Paul have kind of championed this in regards to the tax consideration, and I am for tax reform, and if you're saying we're going to be reasonable, Paul, when the time comes from a tax standpoint, and, I always tell people that, we can always revisit ordinances to make changes if we didn't make the right change initially. I'm not in agreement with the 50%. I'm afraid of it. But to move things forward, I'm going to support this.
I concur.
Okay. We have a motion, a second, all in favor? Aye. That was easy. Okay, let's move on to number 31, resolution of the council in reference to adoption of tax classification plan and requesting the town's legislative delegation introduce the appropriate legislation and work for its passage in the 2022 session of the General Assembly.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Number 32, an ordinance of the town of Middletown. This is the first reading. An ordinance amendment to the town code of the town of Middletown, Title III, Administration, Chapter 34, Taxes, Section 34.02, Exemption on Residential Property.
Motion to receive said ordinance on its first reading.
Second?
A motion is second to receive its ordinance on its first reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Number 33, an ordinance of the town of Middletown, first reading. An ordinance amendment to the town code of the town of Middletown, Title III, Administration, Chapter 34, Taxes, Section 34.30, Real Property Exemptions, Tax Exemptions for Veterans.
Motion to receive said ordinance on its first reading.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Number 34, an ordinance of the town of Middletown, first reading, an ordinance amendment to the town code of the town of Middletown, Title III, Administration, Chapter 34, Taxes, Section 34.40, Property Exemption Defined, Tax Exemptions for Blind Persons.
Motion to receive said ordinance on its first reading.
Second?
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Or is there any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Town council business, number 35, communication to myself and requesting update of school-town consolidation.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
This is a quick update. We being the administration and town council.
John, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Sure. We had a meeting, the town council administration and the solicitor and consulting attorneys on November 8th. We discussed a number of matters in executive session, and essentially the one action that came out of it is that the solicitor, myself, the school administration, and their attorney are to meet to discuss consolidation issues. November 8th is also around the time that we discovered or became aware of the spending issue with the school department. So there was a diversion of resources, but we'll essentially set up the meeting that we were directed to have after the holidays. So that's where we're at.
Okay. My 2 cents real quick, and the reason I put this on here is because after the last meeting, and, look, we voted on this over 2 years ago now. And after the last meeting, it certainly confirmed what I've always felt. Let the educators be educators, and let somebody else handle the finances, and let somebody else handle the buildings, because it's not working. So all this stuff about programs and $300,000 so that we can get the accounting system, I can appreciate all that. And unions and trying to consolidate them, I don't think that's a good idea either. I think that, and I know you're trying to get a meeting with them, but I think that what should happen is let the unions remain the unions. I did read Ben Scungio's report, and basically what I got out of it is we're not gonna save money, and they don't wanna do it. And the reason, my opinion, is they don't wanna do it is because they use some of that money when they have it in other areas when they need it. And if we take that over, they're not gonna be able to do that. So my opinion is that, look, there's not a better time now, given what's going on, than to just grab hold of this and take it over. To me, it's that simple. It's just going on too long, it's going too far. Meetings create more meetings, and I'm not sure we're gonna need to know much about this than what we already know, and what we've already learned. So that's just my opinion. Sean, thank you for the update. Does anybody else have any comments, questions? Mr. Welch?
I agree.
Okay. Anybody else?
I agree too.
Sean, what's the timeline we're looking at? Any idea?
After the holidays, I mean,
For the meeting, but
I think we need to hear from them at the meeting about how they feel about it. If they have an unfavorable opinion about it, I think you have an extended timeline. If it's a favorable opinion about it, it can happen quickly, and I think that's basically what we discussed at the last meeting.
I think it's the right step to take.
Yep.
In fairness. But to me, if you have a problem and we're willing to help you, you wanna fight us on this, or you wanna just, make it right for the town? What we're trying to do is make it right for the town, because what's happening isn't working, clearly. So at this point in time, I see no better time than to work together with them to say, hey, look, we're gonna help with finances, we're gonna help with, take this off your plate, and be educators. Let's get the education right. Hey, something good could happen, you never know. Anyway, so looking forward to the update in the meeting. Okay, and thank you, Sean. Okay. Town Administrator, number 36, Memorandum of Recycling Coordinator / Operations and Facilities Manager in reference to the campground rate review.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to direct the solicitor to prepare an amendment to the ordinance.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Discussion. Mr. Brown.
When the town council adopted or a revised fee schedule, they had set rates for the campground up through the 2021 season. There was also a provision added to the ordinance that basically said the council would annually review the fees after 2021. So we have officially reached the end of the fees that have been set to date. So we are bringing it to your attention tonight and looking to see if you have any direction that you want to provide. I think based on feedback that we've gotten from the campground, they've had significant increases to date. I think they naturally are looking to at least go sideways with the fees into 2022. But certainly, we're looking for input from the council on where you want to go.
My 2 cents, I have no desire to raise their rate. My desire is to, and I'm just one person, is to provide upgrades to their facility. I don't know how the rest of the council feels.
I'd like to hear from Will.
Council Welch would like to hear from
I don't want him to get away with just sitting back there.
from Will Cronin. You
Hiding behind
waited
his
around
mask.
all night. You might
What do you
as
got
well
to say?
something.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Regarding the rate, I think it would be, are you gonna lower it?
Nobody said anything about lowering it.
I think that's what the campers would like.
It's very difficult to go backwards once you're there.
No, I understand, but I'm just, Tom wanted to hear from me, and I think
Yeah.
if the campers had a say, I think they'd say, oh, let's reduce it.
How about occupancy?
So the past 2 years, because of COVID, we've been running at 50% capacity.
And you got 50, you were able to fill 50 of the sites for the whole time?
We are, and I've, during the summer, I had at least once a month, maybe a little bit over that, I'd get a call saying, hey, can I get on the waiting list? So there is a demand, but I think that if you adjust that rate anymore, your camper is $8,800 a lot of money to come for the season.
I don't think so, but. I think
Are you
it's
a
fair-
camper?
I think it's a fair rate,
What are you basing that on?
just being able to be down by the beach we extended the time too. So.
Well, it will be
I
extended
think
this year.
We made some adjustments, but I do think on the flip side of this, we do need to make improvements this year before they get there to that facility. Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we did extend the time for them to leave, but there wasn't time for them to come what was earlier. So I think that,
I thought we did the May 15th.
well, it was supposed to be May 1st to October 15th, but the beach manager couldn't adjust his schedule. So to be in a line with other campgrounds, I think it's supposed to be May 1 to October 15.
Is that the actual dates that Mrs. Flynn's reciting?
Yeah, I believe it was May 1st to Columbus Day weekend.
Or whenever that
Okay.
date would be. So, so there, I think that the expectation of services, and, I know they appreciate the amenities getting tended to, but, while they're not being tended to, I think that, Councilor Welch has a point. Maybe they are overpaying, and I gotta tell you, the storms drove them out a couple times this year, and the dog situation has not been handled. So they are
Dog situation he
dogs on the beach.
That was one person that complained 14
No,
times.
Paul, I gotta tell you, I'm on the beach quite a bit, and the dogs are rampant. Everyone I
What
talk
does
to.
that have to do with the campground?
Well, because they use the beach just like the rest of us use the beach.
Okay.
And the expectation per the ordinance is that there would be not dogs on the beach, and yet
Charge people less taxes because of the dog issue on the beach? No.
maybe we should, or use some of those taxes to enforce it.
All right. Good thing we set a cap on that tax thing tonight, huh?
Well,
Okay. Yes, Mr. Welch.
So, Will, could you just tell us, because I know that the council did not approve the purchase of the new ATV that would, oh, that's not the campground though, right?
No, that's police.
So they didn't get anything.
It was the
What-
Baywatch machine.
What did the campground get for improvements this year, if any?
We have an action list, but no improvements have been made. We're looking into a number of the things that were brought up.
There was a meeting held at the end of last year, before they left, I believe, and they talked about improvements being made this year. That's kind of where it was left. Are the improvements going to be made?
That was the question I was gonna ask.
Yes,
Okay.
there are. So,
Okay.
What's the budget?
What, do we know what those improvements are?
paving of the parking lot. There are improvements to the shower building, including washer and dryer that we need to figure out. There are improvements to the utilities that we need to investigate and potentially make. I think those are the primary ones. I think those are the major areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can't do them all at once, but I think if we continuously make improvements and communicate with those folks, I think we'll be in good shape. And I think, there's a demand there, and there's a waiting list. So to go backwards in price, I mean, if that's what the council wants to do, I'm certainly not going to support that. Mr. Logan.
Mr. Cronin, with the proposed improvements, do you feel your opinion that rate is reasonable for our campground?
Come on, Will.
I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm putting you on the spot. The
Yeah.
decision has to be made. You oversee this. Is that a reasonable rate, given the demand for our campground?
Yeah, you know, it's a tough call, because it is, you know, like Paul said, it is, you're sitting on the gem of Middletown.
Yeah.
You know, you have a beautiful spot. The fact that you extend the length of the season is nice. However, May 15th, you know, on that beach isn't always, you know, shorts weather and, time to go out and enjoy the beach. The shoulder season is, or the shoulder of the summer is, you know, it's a roll of the dice.
Of course it has to.
I think that, you know, like I said, you put me in a tough spot, but I think that it is, I think it's a nice price. I like it. It benefits the town. There is a demand, so I think that it's tough for me to say that, you know, you should lower it. I think that I can feel the campers, you know, with the knives in my back saying, "What's up, Cronin?"
That was not the intention.
But, you know, so I think that for them, I'd love to see a lower rate, even if it means reducing the length of time that they're able to spend.
But I think with that response, with the upgrades that are pending, it's reasonable to keep the rate the same.
I think a camper would be a better one to ask, like Tom, or people that camp. I think that's a hard question for a department head.
No, I understand that. I don't camp. I camped enough. I never slept in a camper. I slept on the ground, so I don't want to hear any complaints.
Okay, let's move along because Mr. Welch.
So I would just say that whereas I would personally, I think that rate is too high, I also understand the point that it's supply versus demand. And if there's enough demand at $8,800 to fill all the sites, then that's the answer. You're hurting me, but, you know.
All right.
I really have to go to the bathroom, and it won't let me, so.
Let's go, Mrs. Flynn.
Just very quickly, you know, it is a gem down there. There's no argument there, but I also wanted to remind the council that it also, for decades, has been a community. You know, a lot of the people that came year after year after year after year, you know, cared about the place, took care of the place. They you know, all got along, they communicated, and some of those people have had to go now. So you just don't want to be that transient, you know, use and abuse Middletown type of community. So there's a balance.
One thing to say, though, under the new model, it's year-round residents. There isn't a transient population there. Whereas when I started 20 years ago, there were daily, monthly, weekly.
Yep.
I mean, we had people coming in and out the whole time. So I just the way you described it as a transient sort of.
Well, I'm saying could be, you know, if you.
No, I would say we're further away from that model today than we were when I started 20 years ago. It's much different. I'm not saying that, and I do agree with your point. There's a group of people that are no longer there, but I think the people that are there are there for the season, and that's something I think that works really well for the campground, because there was just a lot of jockeying and other issues that came along with people coming in and out and then trying to jam as many campers as we could into the campground.
So do we not really utilize these daily, weekly rates that are on the sheet?
We haven't for the past 2 years.
Is it because of COVID? So it's been all season or nothing?
Because of COVID. And I think that's another sort of feature of the campground, is that we're not filling it with 40-plus campers. There is more space available down there, whereas before, everybody was really on top of each other. So it's another, I think, benefit that supports the higher price.
Okay. I'm assuming there's no desire to move the rate, up or down. But we do want to see those improvements. I think that's fair. And what about the date? And you know, I understand, well, you know, it might not be nice weather, or they have to move out because of because of storms. That's the nature of the beast. I mean, you know.
It is dependent
So,
on the memo, May 1st.
I understand, but that's the chance you take, you know? It is what it is.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I just want to put out there, and I would like to see the cost of the improvements, because that's, you know, we're not charging any additional fee to put those services in there. In regards to, it's not going to be any service fee on the $8,800. It's, you know, and so just keep in mind, you know, it is waterfront property down there, and we're charging $65 a night for the camper, okay? And in market rates, that's one of the lowest rates you'll see in town. Now, it's camping, don't get me wrong.
You gotta bring your own house.
You do have to bring your own house.
I understand that.
Christ.
But we do provide sewer, water, lights, a lot of management, a lot of stuff going on down there, that's all I'm saying. And, you know, I understand, and it was at a certain rate for a while, but there are residents who talk to me about, you know, that being down there, and they think that's a great location, and that the rate is a good rate, and some people think it could be higher. So I'm just putting that out there, representing a few people that have I've chatted with in regards to the campground, and I think we've done a good job down there. Thank you. I mean, it looks great. I was just down there the other day. It's all cleaned up, looks nice, and excited for the improvements. I think we need to improve that area down there, and keep an eye on the rate.
Peter, do you need an amendment to the ordinance, if we're not doing anything with it?
I don't think so.
Can't hear you, Wendy.
Sorry.
An extension?
The amendment to the ordinance just to keep the rate the same, to extend the date to 2022, through 2022.
I think the ordinance says that it needs to be reviewed every year.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so there is a motion on the floor. I just wanted to make sure if the rate, if that was tied to the rate changing or not. I wasn't sure.
I will confer with the clerk, and we'll provide you with an amendment to the ordinance for the next meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
What's the motion?
To direct the solicitor to prepare an amendment to the ordinance based on the date. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Number 37, Memorandum of Finance Director in reference to surplus vehicle in the Public Works Department.
Motion to receive said memorandum.
Second?
Motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
We'll move right to 38, the resolution of the council in reference to surplus vehicle in the Public Works Department.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
Discussion. Your answer, question got
I got
answered
my
today?
answer, yes, sir.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 39, communication of tax assessor and finance director in reference to cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to receive said communication.
Second?
Motion is second to receive. All in favor?
Aye.
And number 40, it's resolution of the council in reference to cancellation of taxes for certain Middletown residents.
Motion to pass said resolution.
Second?
We have a motion is second. Any discussion?
Yes, please.
Mrs. Sanos.
I'd like to ask the thank you, sir. I'd like to ask the town administrator whether or not the tax assessor has supplied the finance director with a supplement tax roll.
I'm not aware. As we've agreed, that information will be provided to the town council when the collector and assessor reports are submitted to the council.
Fine, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? On to boards and committees. Number 41, Memorandum of Town Clerk in reference to appointment of tree warden for 2022.
Motion to reappoint Alan Kirby as tree warden for 2022.
Second.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you very much. And I just noted on this memo that we got that Mr. Kirby has been in that position for the better of 30 years.
It's 30 years.
Amazing. And I've heard some of the things that he has done at Valley Park on his own time and, you know, donated. And I just was wondering if we wanted to put on the docket for the future or talk about maybe having an assistant tree warden to get ready for succession when that might need to come up.
I think the criteria is you have to be a licensed arborist.
Yes.
Correct.
Are you a licensed arborist?
Yeah,
Can
I
you-
think I would ask him,
Who? Mr. Kirby?
yeah,
Ask him.
if he needs help.
Well, it's not so much that he needs it. This is succession planning, so that at some point in time.
I want his job.
Okay.
An
then.
appointment's not really succession planning. I understand what you're saying. It's
If
more
he's-
applying for the job.
Well,
And
it's not advertised.
not advertised? We don't advertise for a tree ward?
That was one of my questions.
That was one of your questions today. I do read the bottom of the email.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Number 42, communication of Peter T. Topgod in reference to resignation from the Conservation Commission.
Motion to receive said communication and resignation with regret.
Second?
Make sure somehow, some way, we thank Peter. He's been with us for quite some time. We thank you publicly and personally, Peter, and best of luck to you in your journey. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion adjourned.
Second?
Discussion. Happy holidays,
You have
everybody.
a sleepover?
Hope everyone's safe, and all in favor?
Aye.
And have a great holiday.